Douluo, the master of the nuclear soul. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26 Visitors to the Camp. Male wind-sickle beasts will fight each other, and it is extremely bloody and never-ending. Only the winner is worthy of the favor of the female, but there is also a very tricky thing. That is, before the female completely chooses a partner, there is a round-robin battle, or big melee, not a one-on-one. It is very likely that a strong male is forced to challenge all other males alone. After a large-scale screening, the only remaining male will be eligible, but if this male is defeated by other strong men, then the partner status will change again. In this bloody fight, the wind-sickle beast will show extremely terrifying melee skills and similar soul power increase. Usually, it can last for a long time to deal with various challenges. Only after defeating all males and it is time for mating, the partner will be fixed. Seeing this, Uchiha Uranium admires the author who compiled this soul beast encyclopedia very much. He can only say one thing about it. Awesome. Even the struggle before to mating and the habits of the race are clearly written. I am afraid that this author must be extremely powerful and knows soul beasts very well. This also confirmed that the soul skill he inherited was a special amplification from the internal fighting and bloody battles. Since this male can have a partner, he must have rich experience in internal fighting and bloody battles. Even this special amplification may be the ability he is most proud of. It's just a pity that this extremely powerful ability combines amplification, resistance to long-range attacks, greatly improves nuclear energy reactions, and also has a higher radiation aura. It can be said that once this soul skill is activated, the opponent has only two choices. Either run, or bear the higher radiation and fight him in close combat, but this option is probably the worst option. Anyone with a brain will not choose to die in this way. After all, it's ugly to die. Haha, it can increase the speed by 50%. I don't have to be so embarrassed to run away in the future. I will run around him a few times if I don't like him in the future, haha. When Uchiha Uranium thought of this picture in his mind, the corners of his mouth unconsciously raised a curve, but after his eyes returned to the campfire in front of him, the smile gradually disappeared until it became indifferent. The sound of sizzling barbecue continued to ring out, accompanied by the silent night. A special desolation lingered around Uchiha Uranium. At night, Uchiha Uranium inserted torches on the surrounding stone walls, and with the light of the fire, slowly cleared the debris piled up at the door to prevent himself from being fumigated by the stench. Finally, with heavy steps, he laid down in the tent and gradually fell asleep. Listen to me carefully. Once you enter the forest, you may face attacks from soul beasts at any time. Although the outer area is the area of 10 100-year soul beasts, our target is the 1000-year soul beast. If we go deeper, if there is any problem, it is very likely that we will be hunted down by soul beasts. Don't attack soul beasts at will, and don't leave me 20 meters away. Do you understand? Lin Feng stood in front of the Xingdao Great Forest and said seriously to the students in front of him. In the outer area of the Xingdao Great Forest, the tall trees are at least more than 20 meters. There is no path in the dense forest. The shadows of the trees are so heavy that the real scene cannot be seen. Understood? The young men and women nodded solemnly, and then, under the guidance of the middle-aged teacher Lin Feng, they gradually entered the forest. After entering the forest, the air became more comfortable, and the temperature could be clearly felt to have dropped by several degrees. The refreshing wind brought with it the fragrance of warm soil, constantly stimulating everyone's sense of smell. Is this the Xingdao Great Forest? It looks fundamentally different from the captive forests of the state. The trees here are so tall, I'm afraid they won't grow for hundreds of years. Kai Ying sighed, while moving his eyes away from the big tree beside him and looking at Lin Feng in front of him. This teacher is opening up a path. There is also a teacher behind him, a strong man in his 30s or 40s, with dark skin and a beard as sharp as needles. Two teachers from the Pure Sealington Advanced Soul Master Academy are leading their students to obtain soul rings. The Xingdao Great Forest is closest to the Soul Master Academy, and the soul beasts there are of the best quality. Naturally, a group of 7 people came here and slowly moved inside for the soul rings. The path they took was different from the one they had used to help students obtain spirit rings. Since the martial spirits of the new students were quite special, there were no suitable spirit beasts on the previous paths. So after hesitating for a moment, the dean asked the two teachers to open up a new path in the hope of finding new types of spirit beasts. Of course, the Xingdao Great Forest is the forest with the most spirit beasts. If there is nothing special, it would be worse than the National Forest. Alice, Kang, you said you heard your martial spirit talking. Is that true? You must be lying. I have never seen a martial spirit talking in my life, haha. A pretty little girl leaned against the boy named Kang and asked jokingly. Although she looked young, she was already about 1.6 meters tall, standing out among the 1.5 meter tall men and women. She blinked her cute big eyes, looking harmless, but she said something heartbreaking to the boy. Ha ha ha, Lin Weiner, do you really believe that this guy's spirit can speak? You are too naive, he must have made it up. I have seen through him a long time ago, he just wants to attract your attention. Tisk tisk. A yellow-haired young man on the side mocked, and then whispered a few words to the boy with the same yellow hair next to him. I don't know what they said, but suddenly the two of them burst into laughter and pointed at the silent Kang. Although Lin Weiner didn't say anything, she saw from the corner of her eye that Kang's indifferent eyes showed a trace of disdain, and she felt relieved. Although she didn't know why she believed him so easily, it was obvious that the spirit talking was a very fake thing, but she just believed it, for no other reason, only one thing. He is very handsome. The latest novels are first published on 69 Shuba. Okay, stop being so frivolous. It's very dangerous here. Don't attract any soul beasts. The black-haired boy in the middle broke the laughter and shouted at the two people. It can be seen that among the 7 people in the group, except for the 2 teachers in front and behind, the remaining 5 people are not of one mind. 2 hours later. Stop, hey, Laoli, come and explore. There is something wrong with the surrounding environment. Lin Feng, who was leading the way in front, frowned at the gray surroundings, and then called Laoli, who seemed strong but was actually good at exploring the environment, to come forward and analyze the gray land and plants around. They guessed that they might have walked into the territory of a soul beast that could change the surrounding environment. And just in the distance of this group of people, there was a black lake. The water in the center of the lake kept rolling, as if there was something under the lake. It's finally over. If you have any investment, don't be stingy with your recommendations. Oh, I owe 5 more chapters now, including 1 for every 2,000 favorites, 1 for every 1,500 favorites, 1 for every 100 investments, 1 for every 1,000 recommendation votes, and 1 for every 1,000 favorites. Starting tomorrow I will update 3 times a day and try to pay it off in 5 days. Come on. Go for it. Chapter 27, Talking Martial Spirit. In the Xingdao Great Forest. Old Li at the end walked forward slowly. As he observed the surroundings, his smiling face gradually disappeared and became more serious. He was a plant martial spirit. He could clearly feel that the surrounding atmosphere, whether it was plants, land, air or anything else, was full of death. Death in various senses. This environment suddenly appeared here. The first foot was covered with rotten leaves and moist brown soil, and the second foot turned into dry, lifeless gray, and the color became darker as the sight reached. What's going on in this place? Old Li was silent for a while. He had never seen such abnormal landform changes before, not to mention the death in the air, which made him feel uncomfortable. He felt uncomfortable all over. Old Li resisted this discomfort, picked up the dry gray soil on the ground, put it to the tip of his nose, and sniffed it carefully. A faint smell of corruption stimulated Old Li's nasal cavity, making him sneeze. Shall we continue? This may be the activity area of some soul beasts. With the strength of you and me as soul kings, it may be a bit difficult. Laoli and Lin Feng looked at each other. Let's continue. The place we are going to is passing a lake. If we take a detour, we may not be able to arrive before tomorrow night. Moreover, this area is the area of soul beasts that are 10 to 100 years old. It is unlikely to be caused by soul beasts. It is probably some kind of geographical phenomenon. Lin Feng was silent for a moment. On the issue of whether to take a detour, Lin Feng decided to continue. He was indeed right. This is a low-level soul beast area. The soul beasts that can change the surrounding landforms are at least more than 50,000 years old. It is impossible for them to appear here. Since they decided to continue, Laoli had nothing to say. Indeed, the landform changes in front of them could not be caused by soul beasts. This was too terrifying. The land was desertified and the plants decayed. He had never seen such a scene comparable to destruction. It was very similar to the soul skills of the legendary title Douluo, such as large-scale life absorption. After the group walked forward for about an hour, it was already noon. In the past hour, they encountered very few soul beasts. It can be seen that there is an extremely strong breath of death in this land, which makes the soul beasts living here very rare. Not only that, some of the soul beasts they encountered also underwent strange changes. The two-headed rabbit soul beast had sharp incisors and bloodshot eyes. When it saw everyone, it pounced directly on them, as if it had never seen meat. But this blind soul beast that came to die was easily solved by the team leader Lin Feng. He was just a little surprised. He remembered that this reverse-toothed rabbit was a soul beast of about 10 years old. How could there be such a special species that mutated into another head and had a soul power of 100 years? But he didn't care much. After all, the soul rings produced by this low-level soul beast were the same as their predecessors, very weak. In this special environment, Lin Feng didn't dare to be careless. Although it was easy for him to kill soul beasts, it didn't mean that he could still deal with them easily after the bloody smell attracted other soul beasts. Soon, he poured some odor-covering powder on the soul beast's corpse. Although it could only cover it temporarily, it was better than exposing the bloody smell. Besides, by the time was up, they would have left for a long time. Okay, let's take a break. Lao Li's voice made everyone who had been tense relax. Kai Ying and the black-haired boy who had spoken before began to clear the surrounding thorns and make a clearing for rest. Lao Li glanced at Lin Feng, and after getting confirmation, he immediately began to exude the aura of Soul King strength around to prevent those little guys from being attacked while resting. This place is very strange. Very strange. This was Kai Ying's first impression. He had a vague feeling that he shouldn't have stepped into this weird place. The rotten leaves dried and hardened, and the ground became increasingly dark. Just turning the soil would make him feel dizzy and dazed. The plants around him began to become strange, with withered branches and gray trunks, just like a forbidden place full of ghosts, with a different kind of horror. The shapes of these trees became more exaggerated and weird as they moved forward. At this point, they could no longer turn back and could only bite the bullet and continue walking. Everyone quickly repaired the area nearby, and then a yellow-haired man muttered a few words, and suddenly, there were many steaks in his hands. The dark red meat seemed to have just been cooked, with a unique visual effect of steaming hot fresh out of the oven. Everyone took out the forks or wooden sticks they carried with them, and took them from the yellow-haired man. After a while, they began to eat. Not long after a hearty meal, Lin Weiner leaned against Kai with a smile. The girl's unique fragrance emanated from her body, mixed with a strong, indescribable disgusting smell around her, and mixed into a strange smell. Hey, Kai, tell me, what did your martial soul say? He. Huh? Did you not believe it? Why are you interested now? Kai frowned, and suddenly felt that the girl in front of him was looking for fun. The next moment he was relieved. That's right, the martial soul has never spoken before. With her personality, she would indeed do such a thing, and it's very normal. Ahem, actually I believe you, but you have to let me hear it, right? You secretly let a martial soul speak, and other people can't hear it. I swear I won't tell anyone else. The girl suddenly smiled playfully and blinked at him, her eyes full of pleading, as if she would cry immediately if he didn't agree to her. I've known you for so long, but I didn't expect you to still use the same trick. Can you change your way, Lin Weiner? You always do this. The young man was a little helpless. It was fine if others didn't believe him, but now this childhood sweetheart was also like this, which made him a little annoyed. Please, Kai, the latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Okay, hey, I'm afraid of you. Sighing, Kai turned his head and looked around to see that there was no one around, then raised his hand and called out his martial soul, a giant sickle that was more than one person tall. His martial soul was very special, dark red all over, with a black blade, and some special patterns or lines engraved on the sickle handle. The sickle blade is like a waning moon, or the sharp claws of some monster, and is bent in an exaggerated arc. Behind the sickle blade are two concave and protruding sharp blade tails. At the junction of the sickle handle and the sickle blade, there is a fist-sized vertical pupil, which brings a heart-shaking sense of fear, like a killing weapon, wantonly flaunting its domineering power. To be honest, your martial soul scares me a little, and I always feel like that eye is staring at me, Kai. Lin Wanner shrank back in fear, but thinking that it was just a martial soul, she became courageous again and looked at this exaggerated martial soul. Hey, can you speak? Wuhan. Kaing was silent for a while, and then wanted to say something. The next moment, a low and hoarse voice with a strange bewitching power, but like a devil's low moan, sounded from the sickle, interrupting what Kaing wanted to say. I smell death, all of you, and it smells terrible. Oh my god, the update is so slow, and I'm so sleepy. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 Rust. Who is it? Who is talking? Lin Wanner was startled. The sudden voice scared her, but there was no one around. There was only the giant sickle with its eyes opened. Oh my god. This is true. Hey, Kaing, your martial spirit can really speak. The girl almost jumped up in shock just now, but the next moment she seemed a little weird. She lowered her voice, with suppressed excitement and stimulation, and gently asked Kaing, while her eyes were still on the giant sickle. At this time, she was very excited, with an indescribable feeling. But Kaing's focus was not here. He keenly discovered that his martial spirit mentioned the taste of everyone's death. What does this mean? Huh? Everyone will die? How did you predict it? Kaing raised his hand to stop Lin Wanner's words. Now there is something more important that needs to be verified. This place, this time, the incomprehensible sense of oppression, and the words of his martial spirit suddenly made him feel an inexplicable sense of urgency. He became a little anxious. He also felt something was wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on it. The invisible and intangible sense of oppression around him was slowly accumulating. Although Kaing couldn't tell what it was, this feeling of uneasiness was always lingering in his heart. I will be immortal, but you will die today. A voice gradually rang out from the giant sickle. Along with the voice, the single eye on the giant sickle also turned and fixed its eyes on the boy named Kaing. It then bewitched him word by word. Run away, Kaing, it's not shameful. You don't know what you are facing. Who are you? Are you really a martial soul? What should I call you? Can I trust you? What's happening now? Kaing didn't answer the giant sickle directly, but threw out more questions. It is true that the martial soul is indeed his martial soul, but it didn't wake up suddenly at night until he reached the 30th level of soul power. If his martial soul really has wisdom, why did it wait until now to suddenly speak? You know there are people around. Thinking of this, Kaing's eyes moved, looking at the girl who didn't know what the wisdom spirit represented, and the people in the distance who were still resting without knowing. Silence, a long silence. Kaing put away his spirit, raised his head, looked at the unfamiliar surroundings, and for a moment he couldn't control himself. It didn't say anything, just pretended to be profound and said a few words that it was dangerous here and left early, but didn't even say why. How could he believe it? If he told the teachers about this, would they believe him? Indeed, this place is very strange. You know, 5 years ago, the teachers came here, and there was no special change at all. They walked safely to the edge of the lake in the forest, but now, before they get close, they have already stepped on this disgusting land. This is a change that has only occurred in the past few years, and it has definitely not always existed. Kaing is very sure of this, but the spirit that was a little noisy at the beginning is silent at this moment, which makes him realize that it may be because there are people around and it is inconvenient. Suddenly, that low and hoarse voice echoed in Kaing's mind. The voice had a strange charm, and it made people want to continue listening unconsciously. It was like a bewitching taste. Are you qualified? Kaing. Kaing opened his eyes in the dim world and observed the gray sky, the black earth, and the withered plants. Everything was almost the same as before in reality. If there was no strange discomfort in the air around him, he would probably think that the two were the same product. What? Hello, I'm Kaing. Kaing didn't quite understand what this unknown existence meant by qualified, but out of friendship, Kaing still responded with a smile. He believed that his martial spirit would not do anything bad to him. Where are you? Can you come out? The next moment, Kaing couldn't help asking. The empty surroundings made him a little nervous, really just a little. Release your martial soul, Kaing, I'm in your hands. Kaing immediately raised his right hand, and as his soul power condensed, A dark red and black mixed killing sickle appeared in his hand. The martial soul was about 2 meters long, and he felt a cold texture when he touched it, with a piercing chill. But as the cold touch appeared in Kaing's mind, it slowly dissipated and gradually turned into a warm feeling. The sickle handle itself was too large, so it existed in his hand in an adsorbed state instead of being held tightly by him. "Are you my martial soul?" Looking at the martial soul in front of him that was full of violence, blood and cruelty, Kaing was a little at a loss at this time. He didn't know why he came here, nor did he know why the martial soul could have his own wisdom, and he didn't know what the martial soul wanted to do to him. He was like a child without the right to choose, and could only look at adults eagerly, praying for some candy. "Yes. That's right. I'm lost. Remember my name, Lost. Remember it?" After Kaing asked the question, the low voice that originally had a wonderful charm, like the whisper of a devil, boiled up, no longer bewitching, no longer hiding his shortcomings. With fury and passion, he read out his name loudly. "I'm lost. I'm resurrected. Kane, you'll never guess it." At the same time, in the world of consciousness, Kaing was a little nervous. It could be seen that his martial soul didn't seem to be a normal one. It was more like the soul of a creature, with joy, anger, sorrow and happiness. What Lost said, he couldn't guess. What couldn't he guess? As if seeing his doubts, the one eye on the side turned to Kaing, and Lost continued, "Not you, Kaing. It's the other one, Kaing. Okay, you don't have to understand, Kaing, you just need to know that the past will not have any impact on you." The next moment, Lost's voice became agitated. Not only the martial spirit, but even the entire space had a tendency to collapse. Endless flames appeared from the gray sky, carrying a fiery murderous intent. In a trance, Kaing seemed to be able to feel Lost's heart from this world. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Massacre. Blood. Fury and indignation. Every life is the fuel of my anger. Victory, stepping on the mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Feel my fury. Killing is satisfying. Endless fury emanated from the surroundings, stimulating Kaing's fragile heart. As if assimilated, Kaing could not resist the power from Lost at all. His eyes gradually turned red, and blood filled his pupils. He also wanted to kill people now, using Lost to cut open the bodies of the weak and tear their flesh and blood. "Relax. Kaing." Suddenly, Lost stopped venting. It had been sleeping for 10,000 years and had just regained consciousness. Although it had died long ago and even its power was lost in the struggle, it would not die. By absorbing the soul power of the Kaing family from generation to generation, now, Lost. Wake up. Medicine Lost appears. There should be another update later. P.S. I pay tribute to the Douluo side I once liked. That book is about the spirit lost and the Darkborn side. Unfortunately, I didn't read it in the later period. I checked it yesterday and it has been discontinued for more than a month. I guess it won't be written again. It's a pity, so I also tried to write a future teammate. It's impossible to really fight 7 people alone in the Spirit Master competition, right? But Uchiha fighting 7 people alone seems to be a bit exciting. Chapter 29 Escape. Calm down. Kaing. You can't become a fool. Compared to his own madness, Lost values Kaing as a physical body more. He is now just a martial spirit without a physical body. Everything can only rely on Kaing to act. Although the crazy killing Kaing is more in line with his appetite, there is no need. It chooses Kaing. Kaing chooses it. Since it woke up, he understood that the two are one. No matter who falls into madness, it will have a very, very bad impact on the other half. Unless, the time is up. Kaing supported his knees and looked at the giant sickle in his hand, lost in doubt. He gasped heavily, his face flushed, and the blood color in his eyes gradually faded, as if the madness just now was just a nightmare. Lost, what are you? Are you really a martial spirit? After a little slowing down, Kaing no longer held back. The sudden change just now made him feel scared, and a brain of questions came out of his mouth. He wanted to know what all this was going on, and he had not forgotten that it said that there was danger around and everyone would die. Lost was silent for a while, and then a deep voice sounded. Kaing, to me, you are the chosen one. And the only one. Kaing was shocked. Why did he suddenly feel that Lost in front of him was a little abnormal? Don't think what I said is corny. It's the truth. You and I are light and darkness, and neither of us can be missing. But, Kaing, do you dare to play a game with me? Lost suddenly changed the subject and talked about a seemingly irrelevant point. What do you want? Kaing became a little alert. What is it coveting? Your body. Of course, after you die. Lost's voice suddenly became a little weird, like a spell, addicting, no longer as wild and hot as before. And this change in voice seems to be flawless. The transition between the two is like flowing water. It is impossible to tell whether Lost is a demon who is eager to slaughter or a devil who seduces people. Your bed is only your body, but mine is all my strength. How about it, Kaing? Kaing was silent. If the dark inside that had not awakened before was just a top-level weapon spirit, then the current Lost is the top-level spirit in the entire continent. No other spirit can compare with it. It has wisdom and great power. Why do you want to bet with me? You are my spirit. If I die, can you still survive? This. Roar, then it seems that you agree? You and I are one. You did not reject my ability, Kaing. Lost's power to attract people dissipated in an instant, and he growled fanatically and irritably. You are too weak now. Your killing skills are not enough. You don't even have the strength to support one of my arms. Remember. Kill. Bring death. I will give you strength, but in return, you need a little price. But I refuse, Lost. I am the one who holds the martial spirit and executes the battle. You can't control me. Kaing's face became serious. Since Lost couldn't hurt him, he was no longer nervous about whether he would be the first person on the continent to be killed by his martial spirit. As for Lost's order to kill, he chose to refuse. Okay, Kaing, I will obey your arrangement, but I still have to give you some strength. After all, you are mine. Lost laughed wildly, and the single eye on the giant's eye emitted a dark red light. At the same time, Kaing suddenly covered his right eye. A sharp pain like a piercing suddenly broke out from the inside of the eyeball, and the thin bloodshot-like hair covered the white of the eye, and it became denser and deeper as time passed. Blood gradually flowed from the corner of his eye, and the sudden pain was like a cut wound that ran rampant in his eyeball, causing Kaing to scream. He then half knelt on the ground, covering his eyes and enduring the pain in his eyeball. Lost, what on earth did you do to me? Huh? After a moment, the pain dissipated, and everything returned to nothingness, as if the blood flowing from the corner of his eye was just tears, which would disappear without a trace after a slight wipe. However, this transformation still left traces. His vision was not affected. On the contrary, the vision of his right eye could see more things and farther than his left eye. But unlike the left eye, the right eye had become a dark red vertical pupil, like a reptile or a dragon soul beast, with an amazing deterrence. This is the power of self-preservation, Kaing. Perhaps you don't understand where you were before. The breath of death is everywhere. This is a place of absolute death. I sincerely hope you can leave. After all, I don't want to possess your body so soon. You are really too weak. Kaing. The next moment, the world of consciousness collapsed, and Kaing, like waking up, raised his head and looked around in doubt. He was just in the gray and burning world, and the next moment he returned to reality. For a moment, he was a little difficult to tell what happened. Lost. I'm here, Kaing. What should I do, Lost? Escape madly, otherwise, you will die. Haha. Let me see you running for your life. Kaing. Lost appeared in his mind. All the conversations were conducted in his mind, but Kaing still unconsciously said some words from his mouth, and Lost could still answer these, and it was very satisfied. It seemed to have found the feeling before. Is it because if you stay here you will die? Or is there some terrifying soul beast? The latest novel is first published on 69 Shuba. Kaing has already adapted to the other person in his mind. This is a special experience he has never experienced before. At present, Lost in front of him does not seem to have any killing intentions towards him. It's ridiculous. This is obviously his martial soul, but he feels like a partner and an opponent. It's this land, Kaing, I said, the land of death, which means Kaing. Run away. If you don't want to die, then run away. Lost wanted to answer this question slowly, but after feeling something, his tone suddenly became urgent. If you can see Lost's current expression, you will find that it is very serious. What? Is there a soul beast? Where is it? Kaing quickly raised his head and looked at the two teachers who didn't notice anything, and his partner who was sleeping beside him. He was entangled for a while. Should I remind the two teachers? What if it's fake? No, Lost won't lie to me. He doesn't want me to die now. Kaing calmed down, stood up quickly, looked at Lin Feng and Lao Li, two soul kings who were resting with their eyes closed, and shouted, "Teacher, there is a soul beast approaching." Lin Feng was the first to jump up from the ground, and 2 yellow and 3 purple soul rings appeared on his body, repeatedly moving up and down. Lao Li was the same, but he only had 1 white, 2 yellow and 2 purple. His soul ring configuration was obviously not as high as Lin Feng's as the leader. Lin Weiner, the black-haired young man and the 2 yellow-haired men on the side immediately formed a group in tacit understanding, with Lin Weiner inside and the others outside. At the first moment, everyone released their martial spirits, including Kai. A minute passed, and nothing strange happened. A yellow-haired man looked at the quiet surroundings, frowned, and asked Kai, who was waiting in a state of alert, "Where's the soul beast you mentioned? Is it true or not?" The next moment, there was a rumbling sound of a tree collapsing in the distance, with thick dust and oppression, shaking everyone's hearts, and even the yellow-haired man was scared. "Run. Go back the same way." Team leader Lin Feng was the first to feel something was wrong. He immediately called on Lao Li to take the lead, and he himself stayed behind, leaving the place quickly while the giant creature behind him didn't get close. Such a powerful threat is not something that a mere soul king like him can deal with. Roar. Next to the black lake in the forest, a huge footprint can be seen on the ground, and the owner of the footprint has disappeared without a trace. There will be updates in the evening, don't worry. I'm typing. Where are the votes? I want votes. Chapter 30, Radiation-Infected Monsters. Boom. A figure suddenly rushed out of the forest, crashing into the tree with huge kinetic energy, accompanied by a piercing scream, and then fell to the ground powerlessly, making a tooth-grinding sound of fracture. The 2 soul rings on his body dissipated in an instant, and his limbs became soft, like mud. The clothes burst and burned the skin, making a piercing sound. It looked like he was going to die. The next moment, with dull footsteps, a huge ape soul beast slowly walked out of the woods, with a terrifying murderous intent flowing in his eyes, and it seemed that only madness and the desire to eat could be seen in his eyes. One of the arms slowly dropped down, and the rich black and red flames that were originally entangled on the surface of the fist slowly extinguished, leaving only hardened body hair, foreshadowing the extraordinary blow just now. This is a 3-headed monster that is 7 meters tall, with rotten fur all over its body, revealing iron-gray skin and flesh. As it gets closer, tiny holes appear between the monster's ribs, densely packed, making people tremble. Whoosh! Several dark red muscle tissues shot out from the hole, like tongues, rolling up the yellow-haired boy who had fallen to the ground and had already fainted, and slowly sent them into the head with a huge hole in the chest but no eyes. With a disgusting chewing sound, this soul beast, which was obviously not created by nature, raised its drooping head and quickly devoured all the food. However, its flesh was always festering, and the energy in its body could never keep up with the speed of replenishing the gene collapse. It could only delay it, but not solve it. It had absorbed too much radiation, and even the gods could not save it. Even the reason that supported it to survive was because of the radiation in its body. The endless pain and torture had destroyed its only sanity. It had no consciousness at all, and it was left with only the instincts of hunting. Roar. Unlike a mutation, it was the product of a gene collapse. Its body was out of balance, and heads grew out of it one after another. It even had 7 arms, some of which were thick and powerful, while others were only decorative and hung limply at the waist. The hunt began. Half an hour ago, under the leadership of Raymond Lamb, the group quickly began to evacuate in an orderly and rapid manner. With a consumption of soul power, they ran extremely fast, not to mention that the road had been opened before and there was no obstacle. But they ignored the endurance of the hunter. So a short fight began. The battle started quickly and ended quickly. The 2 soul kings were able to hold back for a while at the beginning of the battle, but after Lao Li was instantly caught by the tongue on his waist and swallowed one of Lao Li's arms, the situation turned. Lao Li knew that he would never survive. The soul beast that was chasing him obviously had a cultivation level of more than 10,000 years, and it might not be an ordinary race. Although the body had been corrupted and the mind had been wiped out, this powerful body was not comparable to that of ordinary soul beasts, and coupled with the size of the ape, this was obvious. They had no confidence in the confrontation, and even their chances of survival were very slim. They could only hope to delay long enough for the children to escape safely. Raymond Lamb was the leader and the child of his father's best friend, and he couldn't die here either. He chose to sacrifice himself and fled quickly in the opposite direction, not to escape, but to buy a little more time. Those good seedlings cannot be destroyed so easily in this Xingdao Great Forest. It is a demon wandering at the source of radiation, the nightmare of all soul beasts living in the nearby area. It followed its instincts and came to the source full of radiation. Although the dense traps around the camp made it suffer enough, the radiation concentration here was too high, and it could continue to mutate. Although it wanted to leave here to find food as a carnivore, the brain born by radiation strongly stopped the action. This brain only wanted to live in a place with radiation and didn't want to go anywhere else. There are many traces of Uchiha Uranium in this place. He didn't even expect that there was such a soul beast that was more than 10,000 years old and mutated by the radiation of a 100-year-old Titan giant ape in his original home. Although he was not there, someone stepped on the mine at this moment. The pursuit continued. Whoosh! Whoosh! Kaiying and Lin Weiner opened their mouths wide and tried their best to breathe, even though their chests were already aching. Not only the two of them, but also the leader Lin Feng, who had a broken arm, and the black-haired boy who was originally indifferent, were also panting and running as hard as they could. In fact, with the speed of the Soul King Lin Feng, he could have shaken off the soul beast that was following behind him, but he was a teacher and there were helpless students behind him. He was already very sad for not being able to save Carter Wei and the two cousins of Carter, but he couldn't show it. The dead are gone, and the next children are the top priority. No one can be lost. Faster, faster. Children, don't stop. Lin Feng was at the end of the team. If necessary, he would entangle the terrifying soul beast to increase the time for the children to escape, but not now. This is a place of death full of ghosts. Here, nothing exists, only dead silence. Ah! Suddenly a shrill scream came from a distance. Kaiying shuddered, and somehow his nose felt a little sour. The two brothers who used to laugh at him and bully him stayed here forever. Then, the sense of crisis and urgency was like the giant claws of a monster, grabbing his heart. At this moment, there was only one voice left in his mind: run away. Run away. Otherwise, you will be torn to pieces and eaten like your former friends. The latest novels are published on the 69th book bar. The boy's face was pale and his eyes were flustered. However, when his eyes touched the people around him, he firmly operated his soul power to ensure that his breath would not go wrong, causing him to fall behind suddenly. Now the desperate escape is to fight for a breath of air held in his chest. Once the breath is loose, he will not be able to run. The tide of fatigue will crush him. Kaiying is very clear about this. He must not die. Lost is right. This is a place of absolute death. In just half an hour, teachers and classmates died one after another, and more people might die next. Invisible fear was chasing everyone, and no one wanted to be the next person to fall. But at this moment, everyone's physical strength has reached the limit. My soul skill time is up. Lin Weiner said softly to the people around her with a tangled face. The next moment, everyone's speed slowed down, no longer as fast as before. Huh? A light breath. Without hesitation, the girl gritted her teeth and once again released the second ring soul skill light feather, providing the whole team with 40% speed, but the rapid consumption of soul power made her a little dizzy, but in a critical moment, she couldn't care so much. Roar. Suddenly, a beast roar came from the distance. The sound penetrated the layers of dense forests, passed through the running people, and gradually dissipated. Suddenly, Kaiying's face changed. Chasing. I want to mention the reason for writing this supporting role, lest you think it's useless. First, involving the soul beast infected by radiation. Second, partner. Third, academy. Because the academy has not been decided yet, I left a backup first, lest you arrange the heroine to give me problems. Chapter 31 Life and Death. But it was just a roar. In Lost's perception, after stepping out of the Grey Land, this ape-like soul beast soon turned back for some special reason. He couldn't feel the specific reason, but it was good news. It didn't dare to leave easily. Kaiying. Hey. I have good news to tell you, do you want to hear it? Lost, I don't have time, I'm tired now. While running, Kaiying didn't expect Lost in his mind to suddenly speak loudly, distracting his attention. He almost crashed into a tree. Oh, okay, it doesn't matter now anyway. Half an hour later, everyone finally rushed out of the forest. In the previous encounter, after a brief fight, 2 teachers died and 1 was injured. Then the second encounter, even more tragically, lost 2 students. It was hard to understand why such a terrifying soul beast appeared in the low-level soul beast area. Moreover, its appearance was very disgusting. Its fur was rotting and falling off, it had extra heads and arms, and even had dozens of tongues growing on both sides of its waist. What kind of experience had given birth to such a terrifying soul beast? It was the winner among all soul beasts infected with radiation. The others were eaten by it. The teachers of the Pustelington Advanced Soul Master Academy naturally did not expect that a young man had lived in the forest lake they had not yet arrived at. The high concentration of radiation destroyed the surroundings, and it was he who turned the outer edge of the Star Dou Great Forest near the town into a dead place. And that young man, Uchiha Uranium, had already gone deep into the depths of the Star Dou Great Forest, looking for a place where he could truly survive. Although the cave was good, it was too narrow. After all, it was better to find a better environment for life. So in the early morning of the next day, Uchiha Uranium took action. He did not forget that there was a lake nearby, but unfortunately, he originally wanted to drink the water from the tributary to ensure his safe life, but the attack of the Windsickle beast caused the water source to be contaminated by his blood in advance. He knew how powerful his blood was in diffusion, so other soul beasts could not eat from this lake, otherwise they would die. He had to look around to see if there was a suitable cave, preferably one that was big and deep enough. Suddenly, the boy froze. He recalled the current situation of the lake in the forest. Settling here would only allow him to go deeper and destroy everything around him. Although the Star Dou Great Forest was large enough, its radiation range was not small. The longer he stayed, the more thoroughly the surrounding environment would be destroyed. The destruction of the environment was closely related to his comfort level. Polluted water sources would kill all living things, whether it was plants or soul beasts that drew groundwater. What if he moved? If he only took a little water source and did not deepen the radiation, then the soul beasts would naturally not be forced to flee, or die here. You know, the meat of soul beasts was his main source of food. Forget it, let's get some water and keep going. I won't stay in the cave anymore. It's boring. Anyway, I'm already a battle soul master, and my soul skills can also provide me with the ability to escape and counterattack. I might as well continue to walk around and treat it as a training. Uchiha Uranium pondered for a moment and gave up the idea of settling down. Yes, if he continued to live there, at most half a year, the surrounding area would become like a lake in the forest. He would not underestimate himself. You know, as the soul power level increases, the concentration of radiation will become higher and higher. Although it is a bit exaggerated, as his soul power increases, the concentration of radiation will also increase. In the end, the water source will definitely become smelly after a few days. It's better to run now. Although the lake water has radiation, if he leaves the source, there will be no problem of continued infection, and the living environment of the surrounding soul beasts will not be destroyed. It is also a benefit for him that the soul beasts don't run away. Uchiha Uranium understands that fighting is a kind of training for him, and he needs fighting too much. And it just so happens that, judging from the crisis he encountered, the 1000-year soul beast does not seem to be so afraid of him. Although ordinary soul masters cannot beat the 1000-year soul beast, he can. The lethality of radiation is far greater than the power of soul skills. It's decided, let's get some water and set off. Uchiha Uranium sorted himself out, changed direction, and began to recall the way to the water source under the scattered sunlight in the forest. He arrived at night, but fortunately, he had awakened the second Magatama at that time. Although the night was not daytime for him, it was not far off, and the difficulty was not high. After a circle, the boy found the way. Without further ado, Uchiha Uranium set off immediately, but in order to make room for the Space Soul Guide, to store water and food, etc., he could only remove some things that seemed useless at the moment, such as the bone spear that had saved his life, or the spare folding tent. Of course, these were not brought by him from his family. He wove them little by little with vines during the day, and made a few more to avoid the tent he used being unusable due to radiation. After packing up his things, Uchiha Uranium left the rock cave where he had only lived for one night. Admittedly, he was a little impulsive. He gave up his good living situation and chose to wander outside without a fixed place to live. It looked like a foolish act. Even if the surrounding environment was destroyed by him, what did it have to do with him? He still had to eat, drink and live a normal life. It was just a matter of moving to another place. Why did he have to set off now? The latest novels are first published on Ryuji Uchiha. Uchiha Uranium could not answer the doubts raised by another him in his heart. He didn't know why he did this. But he also understood that sometimes treating others well is also treating yourself well. This so-called others can be humans, soul beasts, any creatures or even landforms. He still couldn't accept that he was a world destroyer. Soon, he returned to the water source again. The place where he was dying was already a withered forest. The corpse of the female wind-sickle beast was vaguely visible, but it had turned into a pile of skin. Smooth skin. The horror of radiation can be seen from here. Facing the corpse emitting a strong stench, Uchiha Uranium was rarely silent. It's not that he hasn't seen guys who died from heavy radiation, and he has even seen more disgusting ones. He just felt a little sad. Life is so fragile. Time passed quickly. In the process of collecting water, he encountered a problem. What should I do if the water bag is not enough? There is no way. All the fur that has been irradiated will be abnormally rotten and cannot be used as a water collecting tool. Since it is impossible to store a year's worth of water, 1 month or 2 months is acceptable, but then he must consciously get closer to the water source, otherwise the supply will not keep up. At noon, Uchiha Uranium set off to deeper depth. Today's goal is to find a soul beast and then fight it. Chapter 32 Attack. Uchiha Uranium made a wrong judgment. He walked for almost a day and didn't encounter a soul beast. His theory that the 1,000-year soul beast would not be afraid of the radiation source failed. Perhaps the wind-sickle beast couple he met before was a special case. It was getting close to night now. Today's whole day was not smooth. The forest was very large and the surrounding terrain became more and more complicated, making it difficult to walk. But it didn't matter. He was just a little disappointed that he didn't find anything fun while rushing on the road. He had an idea. Judging from the situation of his radiation eye martial spirit, it had all the abilities of the Sharingan, and it was even more powerful, but he had no means to deal with the enemy normally, except radiation. The dynamic vision of the Sharingan, the super high speed brought by the increase of Magatama, and the physical strength and power were useless, which made him a little troubled. He thought of Sasuke and Itachi in Naruto. The same Sharingan, one relied on high speed and accurate swordsmanship, and the other was superb in the Thunder Escape ninja sword. One relies on ninjutsu, but also uses kunai for close combat, and also has a perverted kunai throwing technique, which is flawless at long, medium and short distances. If you insist on saying that there is, then you can only say that each item is not as strong as the specialized one. So, what does the Uchiha family in Douluo Continent have? Kunai. He has never seen anyone in the family use it. Knives? There are some, but more of them rely on the natural affinity for fire in the blood, or the strange thunder, water, earth, and wind. Then the spirit rings obtained are also as close to these attributes as possible, and most of the spirit skills are long-range or medium-range energy attacks. The reason why Uchiha Uranium can know these things is that according to the family rules, before the martial soul awakens, it is necessary to confirm what is physikas. Obviously, it is the most common and most common in the family, fire. So for his first spirit ring, his father would take him to kill the flame beast, which is a soul beast with fire attributes at a glance, but it is a pity that he did not get the spitting type of spirit skills, which he also regrets. If it is enhanced by radiation and becomes a mouthful of enriched uranium, or a mouthful of high-concentration compressed radiation ball, it is very sour to think about it. It is much better than a trap similar to Hunter now, and it is also very cool. However, the trap also has an advantage. It is condensed by soul power, and it will automatically become invisible after the release. Once it is placed, 3 or 5 years later, the trap may still be there, but the explosion range and intensity will be slightly weakened. This kind of permanent thing, although worse than the ray type, is not much worse. So the question is, he has nothing to do in the forest, should he find something to do for himself? Or he can train his reaction speed, dexterity and ability to fly over eaves and walls in these complex environments, and then find a way to make a knife, even a bone knife, which can even be comparable to the straight death blade under the rendering of radiation. As for kunai, he didn't consider it. It is estimated that his ancestors didn't bring kunai with him, and he couldn't make it when he traveled through time. This has led to more and more descendants who only know the secret technique and don't know this weapon that can be used as a dart from a distance and a knife at close range. Besides, everyone is playing with martial spirits, but you are playing with this kind of toys. Once my martial spirit is activated, I can't kill you even if I stab you for a year. After all, the Naruto world is full of squishy people who can be killed with a kunai, but the soul masters of Douluo Continent are kidding you? Thinking of this, Uchiha Uranium guessed that maybe the kunai was once glorious, but it has been eliminated, so there's the current situation. Thinking about it, can we only play with swords? After a moment, he lit a fire in the middle of an open space. The forest at night was quiet. To others, the forest at night was always accompanied by the appearance of carnivores, so it seemed dangerous and deep. But he could see it, and for safety reasons, he arranged a lot of traps. Anyway, they were spare, and his soul power would be restored sooner or later, so it would be a waste if he didn't use it. After all, his soul power is now enough to make 20 or 30 traps without consuming too much, resulting in emptiness and fatigue. Without the influence of wind, the bonfire emitted an orange light, and sometimes made crackling sounds and some sparks. Uchiha Uranium had carefully checked the surroundings, and there were no animal footprints. He was more concerned about bears or wolves. Uchiha Uranium almost lost his life because of the bear and the whimsical beast couple, so he naturally paid great attention to this aspect. But in fact, even if he was now full of traps, once he was attacked, he would definitely not be able to dodge or fight back after just waking up from sleep. But it was always an insurance. Speaking of which, how long had he not spent the night outside? He had been hiding in the camp all the time. Except for the increasingly difficult life, everything else remained the same. He had not even considered further study. No one taught him here. Dinner had just been eaten. Uchiha Uranium didn't care whether the food was good or not. Anyway, it tasted the same every day. If he thought about the delicacies in his memory, he would not be able to swallow the meat in front of him. At present, his food reserves were sufficient. Even if he went out now and there was no fixed hunting place, he didn't need to be so anxious to replenish new water and food. And in the depths of the forest, the abundance of supplies is far beyond the single forest lake. At least there is no need to worry about survival. Crack! Suddenly, Uchiha Uranium heard the sound of dry branches being crushed. The firelight of the temporary camp dispelled the darkness around, but it also seemed to attract the attention of some existence. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. From the perspective of ordinary people, a little further away, you can only see a dark mass, and you can't tell whether there is nothing in the darkness, or whether there are venomous snakes and beasts lurking. The sudden sound made him gradually nervous. He felt that something was slowly and quietly approaching the camp. If it were an ordinary soul master, I'm afraid it would be really dangerous. Humph! Uchiha Uranium closed his eyes and opened them again. The black fan-shaped magatama appeared in his pupils. Everything around him was invisible in his eyes. This is what Uchiha should look like. I can see everything. A blue wolf dares to approach me. It really doesn't know how high the sky is and how deep the earth is. Uchiha Uranium twitched his mouth. He didn't know whether it was because he was excited about having an opponent, or because his idea in his mind was suddenly interrupted, which made him annoyed. But the ending is the same. The boy kicked the campfire casually, kicked out a burning firewood, and then picked it up without warning and threw it to the front left. In the air, the fire shone, drew a beautiful parabola, and fell to the ground with a bang, illuminating a wolf with blue-gray hair, a huge body, and more than 1 meter tall. Under the firelight, there was also the raised wolf kiss, revealing yellow fangs. It seemed to be glad that it met a lone traveler when it was hungry. It was starving to death and no longer cared about any deterrent warnings. Now, it just wanted to have a good meal. Chapter 33, Victory, then Domination. Without any warning, the blue wolf used all 4 legs to exert force, accompanied by a low wolf howl, and then a green figure suddenly rushed out from behind the dense grass. There was no confrontation, no fancy things. It wanted to tear this seemingly weak level 20 soul master to pieces with its fangs and claws. The giant wolf's amazing jumping ability supported it to jump into the air and dive directly towards Uchiha Uranium. At this moment, time seemed to slow down. The wolf's mouth opened wide, revealing ferocious teeth, and even saliva splashed. But Uchiha Uranium could see everything. Without the slightest hesitation, when the giant wolf pounced, the radiation eyes in the boy's pupils turned rapidly. With just a glance around, he saw a suitable place for counterattack. The boy suddenly flipped sideways at a faster speed, then picked up the scattered sharp wooden sticks on the ground and avoided this attack. Then, just as the giant wolf landed and had not yet turned around, He stepped forward and rushed forward, stabbing the sharp wooden stick straight into the giant wolf's head, intending to blow it in the head. Whoosh! As Uchiha rushed forward, a rapidly swinging gray shadow followed, and the sharp wind mixed with a terrifying sense of horror swept towards the boy's body. In order to avoid being attacked, Uchiha took a step back and almost avoided the steel tail. For a while, he was a little short of breath. It felt bad that he almost brushed shoulders with a god of death. If he had been hit just now, he might have been swept to the ground, and then the wolf kiss would follow, and he would die miserably here. This is not a question of strength, but the stiffness after being attacked caused him to reveal his flaws, which might make him bear it here. The giant wolf did not give him time to think. After using its tail to force Uchiha Uranium to retreat, it quickly rushed towards the boy standing in place again. The wolf claws were raised, and the 3-inch-long sharp claws stretched out from the soles of its feet. With the cold light, a silver light flashed in the air and swung at the boy. Retreat. Without hesitation, after realizing that there was no object that could take the claws, Uchiha Uranium immediately activated the second soul skill. With the rhythm of the purple soul ring, the 50% increase in speed allowed him to dodge the slap in a leisurely manner with a backward jump. But it was not over yet. The Kingming Wolf realized that a single attack would definitely not be effective when they fought. Soul beasts are not fools. They will use the old-fashioned trick of clawing and biting you. A blue crescent-shaped light visible to the naked eye swept around, carrying gusts of strong wind, and rushed towards Uchiha Uranium very quickly. Then several more wind blades were ejected in succession. Without giving Uchiha Uranium time to react, the wolf claws, with a slight green glow, rushed towards the boy who was dodging the wind blades. Whoosh! Boom! The power of the wind blades should not be underestimated. It was easy for him to dodge a few wind blades, but after the wind blades cut through the tree, the giant tree canopy that fell was not so easy to resist. As luck would have it, the stones burst and the canopy collapsed in the direction of Uchiha Uranium, and the boy also noticed that the Kingming Wolf was targeting him. But the isolation and long-range attack of the second ring soul skill worked. The flying stones were weakened by the invisible energy in the air, and under the deviation, they even turned their direction to the Kingming Wolf's path. The clumsy tree canopy could not threaten him, but instead stood between him and the Kingming Wolf, separating the man and the beast. The tree canopy collapsed with a loud bang, raising a large amount of dust and fallen leaves, and it was completely impossible to see the surrounding things. A cold light flashed in the eyes of the blue sky wolf. It had an idea. It did not roar, but used all 4 legs to jump as hard as it could. The smell on the other side of the tree guided it, and it pounced silently in the direction of the boy. Ha! With a loud shout, Uchiha Uranium seemed to have fully anticipated the actions of the blue sky wolf. When the blue sky wolf jumped into the air, he jumped high and raised his leg to hit it directly. His movements were elegant, agile, and neat. His body seemed weak, but at this moment he showed fierce power. Strong kick. The blue sky wolf could not dodge and was kicked in the face at once. The wolf howl stopped abruptly, and the huge force attacked, and the blue sky wolf was thrown far away. When he landed, the boy bent his legs slightly to dissipate the force. At that moment, his whole body was like a crossbow cart, and his legs and feet were the giant arrows shot out. Bang! The boy kicked the blue sky wolf on the head, and with one blow, he kicked the blue sky wolf hard and fell to the ground, not knowing whether he was dead or alive. Huh? Dead. After a moment, the boy breathed a sigh of relief and put down his guard. At some point, his right pupil had turned black and yellow. The black one was the Magatama, and the yellow one replaced the white of the eye. The difference from the radiation warning sign was only one Magatama. The Eye of Elements, this is the ability he brought with the awakening of the 2 Magatama, and it was named. And he didn't confirm the specific situation of the corpse, and fully anticipated the position of the giant wolf's jump, even the position in mid-air, all thanks to the Eye of Elements. He had opened the Eye of Elements before, but he could only see black and white vision, but at this moment, when facing a living thing, he could clearly see the trajectory of the energy in the body of the blue nether wolf. The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. Not only the green energy trajectory, but also the red blood rhythm, and even the external energy of various colors became clearer with the appearance of the Eye of Elements. He could see green energy gathering in the mouth of the blue wolf, and he could also see a wolf-like creature leaping up from behind the black and white fallen tree and rushing towards him. The reason why he was sure that the blue wolf was dead was because the blue vital signs in his eyes had gradually turned into black and white, like the trees and stones, as it twitched after landing. If he guessed correctly, it was probably dead. Putting away his fighting posture and the radiation eyes that kept turning in his pupils, Uchiha Uranium felt his legs go soft, and then he collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. This was his second desperate battle. The exploding owlbear and the male wind-scythe beast were not counted at all, and they didn't even fight. The first time was the female wind-scythe beast, and it gave him the feeling of death. It also made him understand what it was like to wander at the gates of hell. Until this time, he was still doubting what level of strength he had. Before he got the spirit ring and awakened the two Magatama, he would definitely die miserably if he encountered the 1,200-year-old wind-sickle beast. But after the spirit ring and Magatama strengthened his physique, he could actually fight against a 1,000-year-old soul beast. In terms of physical fitness, a level 30 soul master might not be as strong as him. But it was a bit outrageous to kick the 1,000-year-old soul beast to death with a volley kick. Suddenly he thought of something he had not paid attention to. Radiation can destroy the body. If the radiation has been affecting and weakening the body of the blue nether wolf, and he kicked it head-on in the air, the impact of its own pounds plus his kick, the strong impact rebound and the existence of radiation directly destroyed its brain. Thinking about it this way, this is the only explanation. Haha, I actually completed my first night kick successfully. I've been practicing for a long time. But it's not perfect. I didn't even get any posture when I landed. What a pity. Writing about fighting scenes is a bit brain-consuming. I'm really sorry. This is my first time writing about fighting scenes. If there are any poor parts, please point them out. As a new author, I will try my best to consider them. By the way, the title of the book has been changed back to Nuclear Explosion Douluo. Go, 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 please vote for recommendations, Chapter 34 Night. No matter what, this blue nether wolf was still the first soul beast he killed without radiation or tricks, and it was a head-on confrontation. As for why it targeted him, Uchiha Uranium didn't know and couldn't explain it. After all, this was the soul beast forest. Isn't it normal for soul beasts to be in the soul beast forest? And the kick he made before, jumping high and then kicking hard, was a bit surprising to Uchiha Uranium himself. This was a completely subconscious move without thinking, but he didn't expect it to become a one-hit kill. The surroundings were still dark, and with this battle, the big trees collapsed, the rubble burst and scattered everywhere, the dust in the air was slowly sinking, and the campfire was a little dark inside. Although the firewood outside was still all extinguished and there was no fire, as long as fluff, fire starters and other things were stuffed under the campfire, the dark residual heat could still ignite it and form a burning flame again. Not bad. This wolf skin should be put to good use. Although the radiation is still very fast, it is much better. Maybe I can make a wolf skin mattress. Uchiha Uranium smiled. He first lit the bonfire, letting the firelight illuminate the surroundings again, then walked to the side of the blue wolf, turned the body over with his feet, and carefully observed the scars on the wolf's head. There was no trace of damage to its fur, only its head had a shocking fatal wound. The nasal bone was shattered. From the mouth, the tall nose to the eyes, it was a mess, black, yellow and white mixed together, and there was a huge dent, which was obviously caused by a violent impact. It was also this blow that completely kicked the blue wolf's head and kicked out the contents of its brain. With this injury, anyone would die. It's not its fault. Although it is a 1,000-year soul beast with extremely fast speed, it can eat a war soul master of Uchiha Uranium's level as a snack, but it is obvious that it has bitten a hard bone. My kick is quite powerful. Should I try to develop a leg skill in the future? Uchiha Uranium looked at the somewhat disgusting wound again, and began to think about the possibility of kicking skills. He has a high physique, great strength, fast speed, and dynamic vision. If he gets those physical skills, perhaps his close combat will be quite terrifying. Forget it, I'll think about it later. I have to peel it off first. I just exercised again, so it's a good time to try a roasted wolf meat as a midnight snack. Without further ado, Uchiha Uranium took out a very large banana leaf from the Space Soul Guide. This was picked by him from the rainforest environment, and now it is just right to be used as a container for meat. He will taste the banana meat later. This is a dish he had seen before he crossed over. The raw materials require meat, blood, salt, star anise MSG, banana leaves and a bunch of other main ingredients and auxiliary materials, but he didn't have those star anise or anything, only salt, meat, and banana. But it was enough. He had some basil he had picked in his soul guide, as well as some plants similar to peppers that he had seen. Although they were only slightly spicy, they were enough. The things stored in the soul guide would not be infected by radiation, so the dried meat, water, and other books he put in the soul guide would not be infected. Otherwise, he would not be able to eat anything because they would all stink. It was easy to skin the wolf. He had a dagger. Although it was not so sharp, the skin and flesh were not so strong. He mainly peeled off the intact fur around the torso, thighs, and shoulders. Although it was possible to peel off the limbs, it was not necessary. Soon, the wolf skin was peeled off, washed with water to remove the blood, and then spread aside to dry. Then it was time for the highlight, the midnight snack. He cut the meat with a dagger, picked out a few pieces of meat of appropriate size, cut a few cuts on it, and sprinkled salt, pepper plants, and basil on it. Then he wrapped the meat with banana leaves, tied it with ropes, and finally wrapped it with 3 layers of banana leaves. He moved the open fire away and stuffed it into the ashes of the original campfire. Covering with soil, Uchiha Uranium continued to burn firewood on the campfire to ensure a constant heat. Although I don't know if it can be eaten after it's done, I have to try it anyway, otherwise how do I know if it's okay? Half an hour later, the tempting smell gradually came from under the campfire. This is actually the smell that all meat will emit after it is cooked. It doesn't mean it's really delicious. Uchiha Uranium knows very well that it will taste better if it is simmered for a while. It's just cooked now. A quarter of an hour later, the fragrance became stronger, but it was also accompanied by a faint burnt smell. It seemed that the residual heat burned through the banana leaves and started to work directly on the meat. It's finally done. I've been starving waiting. Uchiha Uranium smiled and immediately moved away the fire. He used a wooden stick to sweep away the ashes and dug out the banana leaves that were gray and black and had turned into powder. Then, he opened the last layer of banana leaves and saw tonight's delicious meal, banana meat. Without hesitation, he started eating. The wolf meat, which was a bit rough, did not look tender and smooth because it was wrapped in banana leaves. Although it had a faint fragrance, the mixture of meat smell and wolf smell gave it an inexplicable taste. Although it was not very delicious, Uchiha Uranium still finished it in no time. There was no other way. Could it be thrown away? And although this thing was not very delicious, it was at least much better than the hard smoked meat. God had mercy on him. This was the only meal that satisfied him after he came to the forest, in addition to the food he brought with him. He would definitely not be able to eat it in the future. He did not bring so many banana leaves. He brought these things at that time just because of the hamster mentality. He had to collect a little bit of everything. Oh, it's comfortable. Eat enough, sleep. With a long sigh, Uchiha Uranium stood up and stretched, then sorted out the traps around him and found no loopholes, and then filled some more to make himself sleep more at ease. Finally, he casually spread a piece of fur next to the campfire and fell asleep directly. Night time. The bonfire burned again, illuminating everything around. With a slight sound of the flame, time was slowly approaching the night. The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. The surroundings were very quiet, and there were no blind soul beasts who came to seek death. The next morning, the sun shone on the somewhat messy environment around, the trees collapsed, and the smell of blood lingered for a long time, indicating that the traces of last night had not disappeared with the passage of time. There was no one in this temporary camp, and the extinguished bonfire still emitted a faint residual heat, which seemed to show that the campers here had not gone too far. Uchiha Uranium walked on the road, casually turning over boulders, stepping over rotten tree roots, and stepping on some wet rotten leaves. The complex terrain around him did not slow him down. At this time, he was no longer the original boy, and he might slip even when walking on moss-covered gravel. Uchiha Uranium leaped onto the boulders around him nimbly and accurately, then stopped moving forward, frowned, and uttered a puzzled sound. There is a smell of blood. There was a hint of blood in the wind that gradually faded away. He could smell it, which meant that the battle site was not far from here. Hey, let's go over and take a look. After packing up, Uchiha Uranium looked around, determined a direction, and then ran away quickly. Daily recommendation and collection. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35, The Struggle Between Soul Beasts. It was impossible to tell exactly how far away it was, but it was enough to find the noisiest place. Whether it was a soul beast fighting a soul beast, or a soul master fighting a soul beast, it made no difference to him. Anyway, if someone wanted to attack him, he wouldn't mind letting his opponent have a taste of his new trick, blinding his eyes with blood. Somewhere in the Xingdao Great Forest, boom, a tree more than 3 meters wide was broken in half, and with great force, it directly fell on the tree next to it, slowly falling down, making a roar like a muffled thunder, resounding through the forest, shaking up a large area of dust, and for a while, birds and beasts scattered, with sharp and piercing sounds. The next moment, it seemed that they felt the approach of Uchiha Uranium, and the soul beasts that were originally approaching this place hesitated for a while, not knowing whether to continue to move forward or retreat directly. This didn't last long, and soon a leopard-shaped soul beast quickly left the surroundings, and soon, a large number of soul beasts with weak heads fled, leaving only those who were still stubborn, still moving forward under the radiation emitted by Uchiha Uranium. There is no doubt that these guys have taken a narrow path. A low hissing sound rang out from the center of the battlefield, making people tremble with fear. In response to this sound, there was a high-pitched hissing sound like the previous one. If you didn't see the front, you might think that two snake-like soul beasts were fighting. Whoosh! Uchiha Uranium gently landed on a fallen tree beside him, half squatting, watching the battle in front of him with interest. The surroundings were in a mess. Many trees were broken at the waist and fell to the side. The vegetation and shrubs on the ground were destroyed and messy. The wet soil was turned out, and the ground was full of broken branches and fallen leaves, and there were many bloodstains on it. For Uchiha Uranium, who had never seen a fight between soul beasts, this scene was still quite fresh. The fight between soul beasts was much more fierce than he imagined. Boom! Another collision. A giant python more than 10 meters long kept tumbling. Compared with small venomous snakes, this giant python similar to anaconda is relatively non-venomous. Of course, it was just his guess. He had not actually fought with it and had no right to decide. This khaki-colored python had shallow pits all over its body, some of which revealed bright red flesh and blood tissue. The scales were very messy, but it gave people a sense of heaviness that was difficult to strictly define. The huge body, which was as thick as a person, had strong muscles and rough scales. There was nothing else on the body except the khaki-colored scales. It did not look so fierce, but rather had some contrasting cuteness. It was just like the white snake and the golden snake in the zoo. The thick python body was wriggling on the ground. The culprit who lifted the grass was obviously the python soul beast in front of him. Half of its body was raised high, and the huge snake head was facing the competitor in front of it. The slightly opened huge mouth spitted out the slender tongue tip, and from time to time it felt the surrounding situation and made bursts of hissing sounds. Its opponent was a giant green-skinned lizard nearly 2 meters tall and 7 meters long. The lizard's back was covered with spiked shells, and its defense like a turtle made it difficult for the giant python to use its signature killing moves such as binding and strangling it. Ordinary bites, soul-driven ground spikes, and other types of spitting could hardly cause effective damage to this mutant lizard with a shell on its back and a shell underneath. The same was true for this lizard. The giant python was large and moved quickly, so it was difficult to kill it with one blow, and its combat effectiveness in close combat was only 50-50. Its concentrated acid spitting was limited. Shoo! The confrontation between the two sides was soon broken again. The green-skinned lizard made an extremely unpleasant cry, and then opened its mouth to spit out a stream of concentrated green acid. The giant python was unable to dodge, and the acid directly hit the rough scales of the giant python, and a white smoke immediately rose from the surface of its scales. Uchiha narrowed his eyes, and he keenly discovered that some acid splashed on the boulder beside him, and within a few breaths, the boulder had corroded a fist-sized hole. If this sprayed on me, if I just relied on my body to take it, I'm afraid that within 2 or 3 breaths, I would only have bones left. What made Uchiha feel a little relieved was that after the green-skinned lizard spit out concentrated acid, it did not spit out anything else. This reserve seemed to be a strategic reserve of a little bit less. Obviously, this acid is not its regular fighting method, and it can fight with this giant python until now. I'm afraid it has some other means. In Uchiha Urian's opinion, these two soul beasts should be 1,000-year soul beasts, about 1,000 years, and there is no more than one of them, otherwise this battle would definitely be a one-sided massacre, instead of being very wary of each other, and being evenly matched. Wait a little longer. I see more and more soul beasts coming. I don't know what's going on here. These soul beasts are not afraid of me. They all gather here. I'll go down when they're almost there. I'll kill them all at once. Uchiha Uranium didn't rush to go down. For him, there was no difference between a few more soul beasts and a few less soul beasts. Once the second soul skill, the extreme nuclear energy reaction, was activated, as long as there were no soul beasts that could catch up with him, they would all die here after staying in the high concentration of radiation for a long time. The latest novels are published on the 69th book bar. For the first time, he felt that this passive ability didn't seem so bad. At least when he was in danger, he could still kill. From this point of view alone, this power was not bad. There were more and more soul beasts. Soul beasts of 10 years, 100 years, and even 1,000 years appeared. I don't know what treasure appeared here that could attract all the soul beasts around. But the range of attraction is not very large, at least the 10,000-year soul beast is in the core area, too far away to feel it. The two strongest soul beasts on the battlefield suddenly stopped fighting. They could feel each other in this fight. They couldn't kill each other. Unless they were stupid enough not to run away and fought to death, otherwise they would be torn to pieces by other soul beasts around them. The two sides began to confront each other again. But this time it was obvious that both soul beasts wanted to retreat. They didn't fight each other again, but slowly retreated to the back and tried to withdraw from the battlefield. But Uchiha Uranium was not happy. These two extremely threatening soul beasts couldn't slip away under his nose. Obviously, he didn't escape because of the radiation threat when he was around, so he might encounter the surprise attack of these two soul beasts in the future. After all, those who could ignore the threat of nuclear radiation basically attacked him. In order to prevent this possibility, Uchiha Uranium decided to go directly. In his opinion, he would definitely not die so easily. With the high speed of his second soul ring, no soul beast could catch up with him unless there was a spirit beast with agility such as the Windside beast. This was his confidence. Chapter 36 Soul Beast Killing Ground. But an accident happened. Before Uchiha Uranium could turn over and get out of the situation, suddenly a faint smell of blood gradually wafted out from the surroundings. This strange smell, blood mixed with pink sweetness, was like a poppy, with a deadly temptation. The surrounding soul beasts began to riot. The smell came too suddenly, even Uchiha Uranium found it a little incredible. After he smelled the smell, he suddenly had an inexplicable killing intent. Not targeting anyone, but all living things. The surrounding soul beasts were even more unbearable. The two soul beasts, who were originally in a dilemma, seemed to have ignited their anger again. The two glared at each other tacitly, and then there was a tragic charge. The hard snake had hacked the thorny shell, opened its bloody mouth, revealing two sharp fangs, and bit the tender flesh of the green-skinned lizard. The green-skinned lizard was also a tough guy. It bit the python with its sharp teeth and directly pressed its mouth against the python's neck. It opened its mouth and spit out a mouthful of thick acid, which directly poured onto the scales and flesh. Hiss. The python felt pain in its huge mouth, which had been biting the tender meat, loosened and groaned in pain. However, it was not only the green-skinned lizard, but more soul beasts were fighting each other around. It was as if all the soul beasts around had taken stimulants, not afraid of pain, not afraid of casualties, and fought desperately with other beings. This is wrong, very wrong. Uchiha Uranium covered his swollen head. It was as if there was a voice in his mind that was tempting him to kill, but the mental resistance brought by the radiation was enough to resist this, but it was not strong enough to ignore it, so it was like this. There was always something in his head nagging, but he couldn't help but listen to this voice. It was simply devastating. Even he was like this, and those low-intelligence soul beasts were even crazier. When Uchiha Uranium regained his consciousness and looked at the battlefield, he was surprised to find that the cocky giant python that was originally majestic and full of aura had died at some point. It fell to the side, its body broken into 3 sections. One of the sections had a very serious burn on the wound, which was different from the flame and more like sulfuric acid. If I guessed correctly, it should be done by a green-skinned lizard. The cleared area around was completely in chaos. In front of him, All the soul beasts were fighting madly with their opponents, even their intestines were pulled out and their claws were inserted into their eye sockets, which really frightened him. Could there be a 1,000-year soul beast that can control the minds of these soul beasts? And it's a spiritual one. Without hesitation, Uchiha Uranium immediately packed up his things and turned around and left. Are you kidding? If I don't run away at this time, will it wait for it to react and then attack me alone? At present, this kind of group frenzy trick has made him a little scared. If he encounters it alone and turns around to control him, he will be helpless and at the mercy of others. Sure enough, after he was away for a distance, the noisy chattering in his mind, like the desire for killing, disappeared, cleanly and thoroughly. This also made him more certain of this. But just as he looked back, he found something unusual. A fiery red flower with broad branches and leaves and clear veins swayed in the center of the battlefield. It seemed that because the fighting was getting more and more intense, blood was visible to the naked eye on the ground. More soul beasts fell to the ground, and their limbs also changed. They gradually became thin. He could see all this clearly. The radiation eye gave him extremely excellent vision. Even after he opened the elemental pupil, the dense red energy and blue vital signs almost blinded his eyes. In his vision, all the blood and energy were gathering towards the big flower in the center. The blood on the ground was sucked dry, and the blood of the soul beasts lying on the ground was extracted. As the blood accumulated more and more, it swayed gently as if life was blooming. At this moment, the big flower showed an incomparable strange beauty. What is this? Is this evil? Is this some kind of magic grass? Uchiha Uranium was a little dazed. He had never thought that such an ordinary landform environment could actually grow a magic grass, and it was not picky about food. It was satisfied with the blood of 1,000-year-old soul beasts and 100-year-old soul beasts. How is this possible? If the immortal grass is so easy to grow, then the original book can't only have immortal grass living in the yin-yang eye of ice and fire, but it should also be seen in other places. It is probably an ordinary spiritual grass. Wow, it can actually bewitch people's hearts, attract soul beasts to fight, and then absorb blood to grow. It looks like it has human wisdom. Uchiha Uranium slowly analyzed a little bit, but he couldn't find out more deeply, such as whether this spiritual grass would be upgraded to the level of immortal grass after absorbing more blood, and what the consequences or price would be after eating this thing. He looked at the original book, and it seemed that those who had eaten the immortal grass became gods. He was a little envious, but he couldn't bring himself to join Tang San's camp at that time. After all, he didn't even know which era he was in. What if it was in the Kyandaeoli era? Let him wait for 100 years for Tang San to be born? It's rare to encounter such a thing in the forest. It's quite interesting. If I have it, I don't have to worry about fighting with soul beasts. The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. After thinking about it, Uchiha Uranium immediately prepared to act. The first goal was to eliminate all the soul beasts present, and then use blood to supply this enchanting killing flower. As for whether it will become stronger and stronger, and then bewitch itself, Uchiha Uranium was not worried. Instead, he was a little afraid that this spiritual herb could not withstand the heavy nuclear radiation in his body and died early. Take action. Uchiha Uranium once again stepped into the mental interference range of the killing flower. Suddenly, he felt like a strange existence broke into his head. A soft voice instructed him to kill, blood, and death. If it were an ordinary soul master, he would have fallen into a half-crazy state with a wooden mind at this moment, but the radiation eye is a variation of the Sharingan, which usually has extremely high mental resistance, which has long been shown in the Naruto world. In Douluo Continent, this resistance has not been reduced at all. Judging from the current level of bewitching of the killing flower, it may be difficult for it to turn Uchiha Uranium into a mindless killing machine. The pressure is okay, no problem. Then, start killing. Uchiha Uranium smiled, and a faint white light began to linger on his body. A purple soul ring lit up from his body. With Uchiha Uranium as the center, everything around him suddenly changed. Invisible rays of energy swirled around, and nuclear fission continued to decompose new protons and neutrons. The energy reaction that occurred drove a large amount of radiation, and a breath like a prehistoric beast emanated from Uchiha Uranium. Chapter 37 Bloody Killing Spiritual Herb. The surroundings suddenly became quiet. But soon, as Uchiha Uranium entered the battlefield, this silence was instantly broken. In his mind, the temptation brought by the spiritual grass was even stronger, which also made Uchiha Uranium feel a little pity for these soul beasts. Poor guy, I guess even his instincts have been wiped out by the desire to kill. He doesn't even hide from nuclear radiation of this intensity. I don't know what's the point of living. Sighing, Uchiha Uranium's figure suddenly became a little blurry. The next moment, he appeared in the middle of the entire battlefield, looking down at this motionless and strange spiritual grass whose branches and leaves gradually turned iron gray and merged with the surrounding stones. Is it so smart? This is the first time I've seen it. I'm afraid it will become a human-shaped soul beast that can transform in 10,000 years. This is the first time I've seen a spiritual grass that hides itself when it senses danger. If he wasn't sure that he had just seen it, he might not notice this weed in the cracks of the stone at first glance, and then let it escape. Looking at the surroundings, Uchiha Uranium closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Then, he opened his eyes, a ray of brilliance burst out of his eyes, and his figure rushed straight to the nearest cattle-like 100-year-old soul beast. He didn't forget why he came here. He needed to hone his skills. He never wanted to go back to the time when he couldn't control his life. Whoosh! A sharp wind blew, and the figure of the boy suddenly appeared beside the soul beast. Uchiha Uranium's eyes turned slightly, and all the reactions of the bull soul beast were under his eyes. Then, Uchiha Uranium raised his hand and grabbed the huge horns on its head. After pressing it, he ignored the crazy struggle of the soul beast and pulled it to the ground with a sudden force. But before he could finish the knife, he felt a chill coming from the top of his head. Without hesitation, the boy immediately bent his waist and dodged the attack of a cat-like soul beast. The coolness just now was the strong wind brought by its sharp teeth and claws. After it landed, it bared its teeth and stared at the boy in front of it. Its red eyes were full of murderous intent, and it was eager for blood to splash. This is a melee. Without hesitation, Uchiha Uranium directly counterattacked the cat-like soul beast, and it was also more flexible than expected. Even with Uchiha Uranium's speed, it could only barely keep up and could not make faster movements. But killing always destroyed its brain. After 2 fights, this forest cat was uncharacteristically, and directly dodged his attack and landed, then jumped up again and pounced on Uchiha Uranium's face, but this was exactly what it wanted. It was just a heavy right fist. The boy half-crouched and punched it upwards, forcibly hammering it away and falling into the center of another battlefield. Then 3 or 5 soul beasts grabbed its body and tore it apart. In a melee, all creatures are enemies. Time flies. As the soul beasts were attracted by the blood, the hidden killing spirit grass swayed more and more happily, and the sweet smell of killing became stronger and stronger. Just smelling it was enough to make people intoxicated, and then they could no longer open their eyes. It was near noon. As the sound of fighting gradually weakened, there were no more soul beasts around to join the battlefield. It seemed that a soul beast vacuum zone had been cleared in this forest, and the soul beasts around had died. No other soul beasts entered the battlefield, and only a few soul beasts survived. It was not because Uchiha Uranium killed quickly, nor was it because the other soul beasts fought quickly, but because he stood in the center of the battlefield, and all the soul beasts were within the range of nuclear radiation. If it was only a quarter of an hour, it would be fine. As long as they were out of the range, there would be no big problem. But the current situation was that the soul beasts were killing like crazy, and they wanted to get closer, and preferably zero-distance contact, which gave him the ability to fully release the nuclear radiation. However, most of the soul beasts did not die suddenly due to nuclear radiation. They basically died because nuclear radiation greatly weakened their physical fitness, strength and speed, and then brought about internal bleeding, vomiting, hair loss, high fever, internal organ disorders and other adverse conditions. Among soul beasts, just a flaw is sometimes enough to be fatal. Therefore, with the help of nuclear radiation, all soul beasts are becoming fragile, and they are becoming more fragile as time goes by. In other words, they have entered the countdown of life. In the end, the soul beasts that survived are basically either lucky, or they have strong combat power, or they are good at something, which makes them not easy to die. But that's it. They have no way to deal with Uchiha Uranium, an alien human. This killing ritual should end, and I will end it. To be honest, he was very tired. From the morning to noon, he was feeling the breath of death all the time, the sneak attack of soul beasts, the counterattack of soul beasts, the killing breath in his mind that interfered with his thinking. All kinds of messy and deadly atmospheres constituted a morning of desperate fighting. He benefited a lot. But now, the battle should be over. He was very tired and didn't want to cause any trouble. In fact, He also had a feeling that he was too excited to kill. He didn't think or worry. Instead, the crazy killing ignited his desire. It was also partly because of the special temptation around him. The culprit was right in front of him. The next moment, the latest novels are published on the 69th book bar. The 7 soul beasts suddenly seemed to receive some instructions. As if acting collectively, they rushed towards Uchiha Uranium in the center, wanting to tear him apart completely. Whether it was the hatred between the soul beasts for humans or the guidance of the spiritual herbs in secret, Uchiha Uranium didn't care. He knew that these seemingly powerful soul beasts were just the last resort. They only needed to walk around a few times and none of them would be able to stand. After a moment, in this place where blood was flowing like a river, only Uchiha Uranium stood proudly. There were dead bodies all around, and the blood was gradually draining. At this time, the killing spirit grass seemed to no longer hide, and no longer secretly absorbed blood from the ground, but directly absorbed it openly. There was too much blood around, not to mention the corpses of soul beasts. At this moment, Uchiha Uranium, who was standing in the center, felt as if he was standing in a whirlpool. Endless blood surrounded him, with a surging touch like the tide, and an invisible deterrent slowly condensed from behind him. Not long after, there was no drop of blood around, and there were even more dried corpses around, and the ground was in a mess. And the flower that was no longer covered was so gorgeous that it seemed to drip blood. An intoxicating fragrance bloomed from its stamens. The pink and yellow breath instantly filled the entire battlefield, and the bloody smell was unconsciously absorbed, leaving only the breath-like green grass in the forest. It took shape. Uchiha Uranium smiled lightly and reached out to hold its stem. The rough dark brown branches had a sticky and moist feeling, like touching a slug or soaking his hand in a pool of blood. But he didn't care. With the force of his right hand, he pulled up the killing flower that absorbed the blood of all the soul beasts present, along with the soil. You are mine. Today's update is complete, and I'm going to save the manuscript. Starting tomorrow, I'll update 4 times a day for a week. Everyone, please collect, recommend and invest. Chapter 38 After the War. Without any picking techniques or protective measures, Uchiha Uranium just carelessly pulled a bloody killing spirit grass out of the crack in the rock by grabbing the stem. Although there was some resistance, it did not hinder his actions. No matter how smart the spirit grass was, it could not move and escape, and could only be held firmly in his hand. I don't know if this spirit grass can be eaten. I always feel that if I tear the petals and swallow them directly, something bad will happen. Uchiha Uranium looked at the blood-red spirit grass with brown soil in his hand, and was a little hesitant for a while. The books he read did not have any rare species such as spirit grass and fairy grass. For such things, it must be an expert who came to judge whether it should be eaten or when it is best to eat it. He is just an outsider, and he knows very well that you must not eat things you don't know outside, otherwise diarrhea is not a big deal, but eating it directly is also very likely to kill you. When he was thinking about how to deal with this big flower, suddenly, he felt a pain in his skin and flesh from the fingers holding the stem. The sudden pain that felt like his fingers were connected to his heart frightened Uchiha Uranium. His right hand, which was holding the stem of the big flower, loosened due to the pain, and the bloody killing spirit grass quietly fell to the ground, making a soft landing sound. Uchiha Uranium looked at the sharp wound on the belly of his index finger. A few drops of blood were still left near the wound without dripping. When he looked at the big flower on the ground quietly absorbing the blood, his brows could not help but frown. This thing also has the ability to grow thorns, pierce the skin, and absorb blood? Huh? Wait, you dare to suck my blood? Want to die faster? In shock, Uchiha Uranium suddenly thought of his own situation. For a moment, he had some strange thoughts about this spirit grass that dared to suck his blood. You are very brave. The boy smiled and picked up the big flower that fell on the ground again. He wanted to see what wonderful changes would happen after this bloody killing spirit grass absorbed his blood. As expected, after absorbing Uchiha Uranium's blood, the spirited blood-red flower shook violently, the petals trembled, and the stem began to shed black and red, unknown juice. As time passed, the vibration became stronger, and the leaves of the flower that had been proudly standing slowly drooped, as if it had reached old age in an instant, just like a mimosa, wrapping itself up, which made Uchiha Uranium look a little silly. Not long after, the spiritual grass that was so arrogant in his hands, accompanied by killing and death when it appeared, and even had a certain intelligence, just sucked his blood and became autistic. After a while, Uchiha Uranium poked the spiritual grass with his finger to see its reaction, but it did not move at all, still closing its leaves tightly, wrapping itself up, and not exposing the stamens and ovary in front of him. For a moment, Uchiha Uranium was in a playful mood, and he raised the index finger that still had blood on it, and pressed it towards the flower bud outside the spiritual grass little by little. Exclamation mark. After the index finger was raised, the spirit grass tilted suddenly at an angle, as if it had seen a flood in a beast. As the index finger got closer, the angle of its tilt became larger and larger. It was obvious that it wanted to stay as far away from his blood as possible, and it would be best if it didn't touch it at all. But there was a limit after all, and it couldn't pour out any more. It was visible to the naked eye that as the index finger approached, it began to tremble all over, and it became more and more intense. Haha. This thing is really interesting. Now it seems that at least it won't be easily killed by my radiation. It's interesting. Uchiha Uranium laughed, and took out a wooden box, dug some soil from the rock where it originally lived, and then inserted it into the box, sprinkled some water, and used a dagger to dig a hole above the box. Soon, it was packaged into shape with soil and roots in the box, but the stems and flower buds were exposed. He suddenly became interested in raising plants. Originally, he wanted to raise some soul beasts, or animals, so that he wouldn't be too lonely in the forest. But unfortunately, as long as it was a soul beast, it would definitely die in his nuclear radiation. This was beyond doubt. After a long time, he gave up this idea. But unexpectedly, now he has the opportunity to raise something more powerful and interesting than a soul beast, a spiritual grass. He didn't think this thing was a fairy grass. He had read the book to name it a spiritual grass. After all, although there were plant soul beasts in the shape of grass, the area in front of him was obviously the habitat of theropods and reptile soul beasts. Only an environment with dense vegetation and heavy tree shadows could give birth to such plant soul beasts. What's more, it could easily bewitch all soul beasts in a large area. If they grew up here since childhood, they would have been eaten long ago. The most important guess is that soul beasts have the instinct to run away when they see him, but the stupid thing in front of him was biting his finger directly, and was dumbfounded when it sucked blood. It knew that something was wrong and was hiding from him. If this thing is really a soul beast, isn't that a bit too stupid? Patting the dust off his body, Uchiha Uranium casually put it on his lower back, tied it with a rope, and then began to walk towards the scattered corpses. After beating the soul beast, it's time to touch the corpses. 2 hours later, the boy straightened up, wiped the hot sweat from his head, put the intact sharp claw in his hand into the animal skin bag next to him, and looked around. This was the last corpse. A big harvest. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Although the boy felt very tired and wanted to sleep at the moment, he was particularly excited. This was an unprecedented big harvest, and he had never seen so many trophies. Although many corpses were already badly damaged, such as the snakeskin that was originally in good condition, it was directly broken into 3 sections, and its appearance and use were greatly reduced. Fortunately, there are a lot of good things. Although it is a bit like picking up garbage, there are good and bad garbage. The sharp claws, shells, fur, special organs, or fangs, and bones of special shapes of soul beasts are all good things for him. Some can be used as daggers, some can be used as instruments for scraping skin and bones, and some bones can be excellent weapons after a little polishing. Shells can be used to make armor, breastplates, or as roofs when it rains, or as roofs for houses. And there is also this leisure time, to spend time to make your life more comfortable. Huh? I'm exhausted. With a sigh of relief, he has been working on these spoils for nearly 2 hours. He already feels that his physical strength is almost at its limit. Uchiha Uranium quickly walked to the tree next to him, half leaning against a trunk, squinting his eyes, enjoying the cool breeze in the forest, feeling very comfortable. This is life. After working, you should take a good rest. If you have a drink or a popsicle at this time, you will be better than a god. Oh, I miss the past so much. Unconsciously, he lay in the shade of the tree, and the sound of steady breathing gradually came. The surroundings soon fell into silence, and no living creatures could disturb him. The PK has begun. I hope I won't be beaten to pulp. The first update, there will be 3 more updates later. Please vote and collect and invest. This is very important to me. Chapter 39, Steel-Legged Spider. The next morning, Uchiha Uranium woke up and looked at the unfamiliar environment with sleepy eyes. For a moment, his mind was a little confused. Where am I? He looked around and suddenly understood. He thought that he was actually tired and fell asleep. He couldn't help laughing. He thought that this kind of wanton and happy mood would never come back after the attacks of those crazy soul beasts. But unexpectedly, it finally appeared. Although there was no trap to protect him, the radiation concentration emitted by the 22nd level soul power at this time was not comparable to that of the 10th level. He will only be safer and safer in the future. When his soul power level is getting higher and higher, the soul beasts that can threaten him will surely become less and less. Oh, it's comfortable, let's go. Stretching, the boy ate some breakfast casually, and then watered the spiritual herbs he caught yesterday, and then set off lightly. It must be said that the convenience brought by the Space Soul Guide is really too easy. I don't know what era this lost technology is, so that there are very few such soul guides in the whole Douluo Continent now. Could it be that someone from the Sun-Moon Continent sneaked in, died, and was left here? This possibility is not impossible, but Uchiha Uranium does not need to delve into these things. For him, it is better to think about what to eat for lunch than to care about the Sun-Moon Continent. The surroundings gradually stink. When the blood is sucked out, the rate of decay of the corpse is greatly reduced, but the dry corpse will also ferment microorganisms. Soon, as time goes by, a strong stench of corpses floats here. Uchiha Uranium did not stop and left here soon. This place is not suitable for staying for a long time. There is no need to stay any longer. The forest is lush, and a nimble figure shuttles through the woods. This is Uchiha Uranium. Uchiha Uranium quickly left the battlefield that was like a meat grinder. At this moment, he ran aimlessly in front of him at a very fast speed without retaining any soul power. This is his training. He made a plan for himself to train his flexibility, as well as how to attack, defend, or counterattack at high speed, and find opportunities, which can only be improved by personal experience. Whoosh! He rushed up to the boulder in 3 or 2 steps, put some force on his toes, and his body was lifted into the air again, crossing a long distance. He stepped on the trunk of the tree sideways, and used the force again to jump in the air. It seemed that he had become somewhat skilled, or because he had no pressure in the process of jumping, Uchiha Uranium gradually began to increase his height and speed, enjoying the wind like a gust of wind rushing towards him, just like a spirit of nature, enjoying the speed and passion wantonly. Snap! Uchiha Uranium stopped. He stood on the fork of a branch that was more than 10 meters high. The thick branches were as thick as his waist and could fully bear his weight. He just saw a group of blurry things along his field of vision. Because the distance was a bit far, it was beyond the extreme vision range of his radiation eye, so he couldn't see clearly what it was, but he could be sure that it should be a large soul beast. Go over and see what it is. After a moment of hesitation, Uchiha Uranium decided to go and take a look. As the saying goes, a skilled person is daring. He already has the ability to move at high speed and jump in the forest. Without being disturbed by complex terrain, he also became a little arrogant. After all, if no soul beast can catch up with him, then there is nothing to be afraid of. After making a decision, the boy's figure flashed, and the next moment, he appeared on the trunk of another tree. This kind of trunk jump he had seen in Naruto, now he finally has the ability to realize it. A moment later, he came to a nearby tree trunk and looked down at a spider-like soul beast that was seriously injured and unable to move under the shade of the tree. Is this a steel-legged spider? With such a large size, it should be more than 1,000 years old. My goodness, the body is almost the same as a car. If the spider legs are fully spread, it may take up a 2-lane road. The silver-gray spider in front of him was something he had seen in the Soul Beast Encyclopedia. Generally speaking, they are 100-year-old soul beasts, and rarely are 1,000-year-old soul beasts. The reason is that it needs to lay eggs and eat male steel-legged spiders to significantly increase its age. Unlike humans, males of this type of spider soul beast basically exist as food, so few males can live for more than 500 years, not to mention that the stronger the female, the higher the requirements for a mate. The Soul Beast Encyclopedia records that the reason why there are few 1,000-year-old steel-legged spiders is that females want to upgrade their age, so they have to eat males. As the suitable males have been eaten, the next generation of males do not meet the females' requirements for upgrading their age. Females do not look down on those weak males, so they can only waste time. or take the risk to go to other places to try their luck and see if there are any strong males that can satisfy their appetite. If not, they can only stay at the 100-year level for the rest of their lives and can never go any further. That's why he was a little surprised that there was a 1,000-year-old steel-legged spider, and it was in a seriously injured state. For a passing soul master, it was simply a soul ring that came to his door automatically. The latest novel is published on the 6th-9th book bar. But unfortunately, he had already obtained his second spirit ring, otherwise he might have really taken a fancy to this steel-legged spider. After all, it was too rare. It was so rare that even if there were ordinary spirit beasts of the same level as it, or even older, he would still choose the steel-legged spider. There was no other reason. The spirit skills brought by rare spirit beasts must be very valuable. Let me see who did it. Uchiha Uranium became interested in the steel-legged spider. The Spirit Beast Encyclopedia records that the feet of the steel-legged spider are very hard, light, and hollow. Because it is made of biological material, it is hard but not brittle, with a fine texture, no prickly cilia, and no various toxins. As long as it is processed, it will be a good weapon-based material. Moreover, the steel-legged spider is full of treasures. Spider silk is a kind of silk protein, tough and elastic, with a strength of more than 5 or 6 times that of ordinary steel, and is often used to make close-fitting soft armor. Small-sized and young steel-legged spiders are usually caught in summer and autumn, boiled to death in boiling water, and then taken out after boiling for an hour. They are dried and stored for 3 days. The whole body is ground into powder and taken internally to treat infertility, stroke, facial paralysis, etc. External application can treat hemorrhoids, expel heat and cool down, detoxify and reduce swelling, etc. It can be said that the medicinal value is very high. Large-sized steel-legged spiders are even better. In addition to the above, there are some special effects. For example, by removing the head and feet, decocting the whole spider, supplemented with appropriate amounts of dried scutellaria, snake skin, and musk, it can be used to treat brain diseases. It can be said that as long as the steel-legged spider is caught, its whole body can be treated as a treasure. After reading the encyclopedia, Uchiha Uranium nodded with satisfaction and then put it away. Suddenly, he felt that something was wrong with this encyclopedia. How could it even write about how to use it as medicine, decocting and other time methods? It looked a bit weird no matter how he looked at it. It didn't look like a soul beast encyclopedia, but more like some Shanhaijing he had seen in his previous life. The left sentence says that eating it can improve eyesight, and the right sentence says that meat is fishy and should not be eaten too much. The second wave is coming. Please recommend again. Chapter 40, Iron Leg Knife. Should the Soul Beast Encyclopedia be like this? But the author of this Soul Beast Encyclopedia is really awesome. Not only does he have time to record various habits, but he even writes clearly about a medicinal value. It's amazing. After sighing for a while, Uchiha Uranium lowered his head and continued to look at the steel-legged spider, which was standing there, not knowing whether it was alive or dead. The reason why he didn't go down immediately was to find the whereabouts of the soul beast that had seriously injured it. He was not worried about being ambushed, but if a fight really broke out, he would find it a bit troublesome. You know, the combat power of the steel-legged spider is not the top among the 1,000-year soul beasts, but it is already quite capable. The spider legs are as sharp as knives, the spider silk is tough, the movement is fast, and the shell is hard. If it is not much older than it, in a one-on-one fight at the same level, the steel-legged spider is completely invincible. But looking down from above, you can see that there is a huge hole on the back of the steel-legged spider. From the wound, you can see colorful intestines and other tissues constantly wriggling inside, which looks extremely disgusting. What does this mean? This means that it was seriously injured and fell to the ground. It means that the steel-legged spider did not fight with the attacker at all. Although it does not look like a one-sided crushing, if this kind of attack happens a few more times, it will be no different from a complete defeat. He did not think that he could do better than the steel-legged spider in such a complex terrain. Although it was larger and more vulnerable to attack, he was not made of steel. Even its exoskeleton was almost penetrated. If he was scratched, half of his body would probably be blown up. That's why he didn't go down. Careful observation is not cowardly. It's called waiting for the right time. Can the patience of a qualified hunter be considered cowardly? He waited for nearly an hour, but still did not come down from the tree. He watched the steel-legged spider gradually go from being seriously injured to dying. Even the corpse was cold, but the soul beast that caused the fatal blow did not appear. Suddenly, Uchiha Uranium thought of a terrible guess. Could it be that it has been observing him all the time? Suddenly, he moved. With a strong jump, he quickly left the place where he was originally. The magatama in his pupils of radiation eyes quickly rotated, and one of them had become the appearance of the Eye of Elements, observing all signs of life around him through his sight. There was nothing, and there was a dead silence around him. There was no sign of life in the black and white world. This can only be said that he thought too much. Thinking of this, Uchiha Uranium slapped his forehead. Oh, why didn't I open the Eye of Elements at the beginning? I could have killed this spider a long time ago, but I stood on the tree stupidly for almost an hour. Why am I so stupid? While lamenting his stupid appearance, Uchiha Uranium walked directly to the corpse of the dead soul beast. The steel legs flashing with cold light carried an extremely amazing deterrent force. This is the key to the name of the steel-legged spider. In the true sense, biomass is stronger than steel. It is lighter than steel, harder than steel, and more resilient than steel. In addition to the fact that steel can be mass-produced and the output is almost the same, the treasures on the steel-legged spider are much better than the steel made. This is the great advantage of soul beasts, using soul power to nourish the body. Otherwise, how could ordinary beasts have such terrifying hardness? Do you really think that smelting steel is like burning firewood, which is useless? It's just that soul beasts are too abnormal. Uchiha Uranium gently tapped the thick limbs in front, and heard a soft echo from above with his fingers. Okay, this thing is really good. It looks like my sword should be able to use this. The young man's face was delighted. He had been envious of Uchiha Sasuke's amazing physical skills and swordsmanship for a long time, but he had no suitable weapons. Recently, he only used fists, legs and feet in battle, or relied on radiation. There was no precedent for using weapons at all. The female wind sickle beast was no exception. After all, she bumped into him by herself, and he didn't do anything. Although he had not practiced related moves or steps, sword paths and other things before, and had not learned things like knife-holding techniques and chopping methods, but it was enough to know how to use things to kill people, and he didn't expect to be too proficient. Anyway, it would be nice to be like Uchiha Sasuke. Once the radiation eye is open, the speed will increase dramatically. He will chop people with a knife and use lightning escape at the same time. But he doesn't have lightning escape, but he has radiation. Could it be that the radiation goes along the knife and directly enters the body? Removing the limbs didn't bother him for too long. Soon, Uchiha Uranium removed all the limbs at the front and along the joints. The largest one will definitely not be used, but it can be kept and used for other things in the future. The limbs in the middle are just suitable for use as weapons, but they still need a little polishing. After all, they are not on the shape of blades, but sharp cylinders. The smallest limb is not much smaller than the middle one, but it has enough joints. The one picked is a little short, but very hard. He hasn't thought of what to use it for, but put it aside for now. There will always be times in the future. The next step is to peel the shell. Generally speaking, the steel-legged spider uses soul power to nourish its feet, and then warms the shell. Uchiha Uranium didn't know whether the 1,000-year-old soul beast in front of him had been nurtured, but as the saying goes, plucking feathers from a passing goose, at least he should take it down and see how it works. If it's really not useful, just throw it away. The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. Soon, with the help of the limbs, the shell was opened. The colorful intestines and brains flowed all over the floor, and a strong stench emanated. The whole corpse had an indescribable smell, which really made him feel nauseous. Seeing this, Uchiha Uranium no longer had the mood to continue looking for materials. He only took these limbs and left the skull in a hurry. At noon, he polished the limbs he liked next to a protruding rock. In fact, this kind of biological limb is not suitable for polishing. After all, it is fixed and formed, and once it is damaged, the whole body will be useless. But Uchiha Uranium is different. He only needs one weapon, and he has many limbs. Logically speaking, he doesn't really need so many limbs. It's okay to waste a few. Anyway, if you break a few more, you can make a relatively perfect weapon with experience. About an hour later, after scrapping 3 limbs, Uchiha Uranium finally made a real steel-legged knife. The sharp cylindrical surface was ground into knife shape by him. One side is thick and the other side is thin. The thin side is flashing with cold light. Although it is not as sharp as similar swords, but compared with the hardness, if the two are chopped, this steel leg knife will definitely win. The leg knife is silver gray in color, with another limb at the end, which is directly connected to the end of the leg knife. The limb is wrapped with bandages and serves as the handle. The blade is about 1 meter long, without a guard and a tassel. The overall look is not much different from Sasuke's Kusanagi sword in the Naruto anime. Except that one is biological kaiden nourished by soul power, and the other is steel. The fourth update will be in the evening, not too late. Please collect and recommend. Chapter 41 The So-Called Knife. Having acquired a good weapon, Uchiha Uranium naturally wielded it with a force. It was not heavy, so it was not difficult to wield it. The cold light whizzed through the air with amazing sharpness. One could vaguely hear the strange sound of airflow brushing across the blade. Although it was a biological body, it was not easy to reach this level. Hey, good stuff. Oh, by the way, there are some small ones that can be used to make daggers. Once there's a battle in the future, I will directly use flying daggers to serve. Uchiha Uranium suddenly thought that he still had many small limbs on his body. If he didn't use them, wouldn't it be a waste? With the experience of making them before, half an hour later, he sorted out 16 short daggers less than 20 centimeters long, without hand guards. The specific appearance was a smaller version of the long sword. The only difference was that the appearance was slightly changed. Instead of sharpening one side, both sides were ground slightly thinner. There was no other way. The word sharpening originally refers to steel tools. The limbs in his hand were biological limbs, so the two were not applicable. They were just slightly sharpened and thinned. After playing with them for a while, Uchiha Uranium put away the weapons and took out a thick, hollow limb. It was a bit heavy and not suitable for use as a weapon, but in Uchiha Uranium's opinion, this thing could be used as a scabbard. Otherwise, what would it look like if the knife cut off his hand accidentally? And those daggers used for throwing also need a carrying and hanging object, preferably on the waist, so that they can be thrown out in time to avoid missing the opportunity. More and more ideas about the application of weapons came to his mind, whether it was a scabbard, a dagger, a belt, or more blood grooves, ridges, spiked armor, all of which popped up, as if he had picked up a spider and opened up his cold weapon technology tree all at once. However, with this idea, Uchiha Uranium suddenly thought that he should give the weapon a name. The iron leg knife he casually called it was very cool, and the name was too long. You know, this sword may be the only thing that he can consider powerful in the future. The 1,000-year-old steel-legged spider is rare, and there is more likely to be only one in the same area. If he encounters other soul beasts, it is difficult to have the strength of this sword. More importantly, it is the first weapon, which is very commemorative. Sword? Why not call it Kusanagi sword? Oh, no, this is a foreign sword. What about Longquin? No, this is a sword. After hesitating for a moment, Uchiha Uranium still didn't decide to call it this. After all, there are countless swords with this name, so it's better to think of a domineering one. What swords are more famous in history? Uchiha Uranium frowned. He didn't study history very much. At this moment, he felt that his mind was a mess. There were too many famous swords, but there were obviously too few swords, and even the evaluation was the same. The most famous sword in ancient times should be Zuinidan, so the knife right. Minghong knife. The brother of Zuinidan's sword. I remember that it seems to be a knife that was condensed from the raw materials flowing to the bottom of the furnace. Uchiha Uranium slapped his head and suddenly recalled that although he had no record of war, the sister sword he thought of had the same origin as Zuinidan. He still remembered that this was an ancient text he saw in class. The general idea was that in ancient times, Emperor Zuinidan Huangdi cast a sword, and there was still some raw material left. Because the high temperature had not dissipated, the casting raw material, which was still liquid, spontaneously flowed to the bottom of the furnace and formed a knife shape after cooling. Then Huangdi felt that the knife's knife intent was too strong and could easily backfire on the person who used it. He was a little afraid that this knife would bring disaster to the world, and wanted to destroy it with Zuinidan's sword, but he didn't expect that the knife would turn into a red skylark in his hand, turning into a stream of red and disappearing into the clouds, and escaping. Should I call it this? The origin of the knife name is a bit big. Forget it, let's call it Minghong sword. It happens to be the first sword in history, and now, it is also my first sword. The meaning is completely reasonable. Uchiha Uranium looked at the silver-gray killing weapon in his hand, and was somewhat satisfied with the name with profound meaning. The name is nothing more than that, and it has nothing to do with whether the Fate can suppress such illusory things. He is already in Douluo Continent. Can the real Minghong sword still kill him? And it is still unclear whether this sword exists. 2 hours later, it was dark. Uchiha Uranium also put away the scabbard that had been hammered. In one afternoon, he only made a scabbard and half a belt. The scabbard was okay, just hammering the shape, but the belt to store the dagger was very uncomfortable. There must be a shell to store the dagger, and it must be connected together, compact, and convenient, which made this thing more complicated. He is not a blacksmith, and he can't do such things properly. So he dragged it until dark, and he was hungry and his waist and back ached. Fortunately, when he was tired of knocking, he explored the surroundings and got a bunch of steel spider silk. It was very tough. You had to use a little force to cut it with a knife to break a little fiber. If you really want to cut it, you have to cut it 3 or 5 times. After finding this thing, he had the idea of making a belt. Make a shell, and then connect it with spider silk. It can be used as a rope. Just wrap 3 strands and then make a knot to fix it firmly. Leaning against a tree, the bonfire burned, illuminating the face of a young man. The forest is different from human society. There are no people here, so naturally he doesn't need to dress and organize himself. His hair is disheveled, like a savage. His long silver hair is no longer soft, bright and smooth. For many years, he has been eating meat and eating less vegetables, which makes his hair dry and rough. The ends are even split into many branches and tangled. If this happens to women, it will surely drive them crazy. But he didn't care. He even washed his face and brushed his teeth just to follow the habit of his previous life and not to be too sloppy. Most of his body was exposed, and his upper body was covered with fur. He just wrapped himself up and was done. He was not ashamed at all, and he was not afraid of being seen by others. He was now a wild man. After a few decades, I am afraid that he would only look like a human being from the outside. The latest novel will be published on the 6th book bar on September 9th. He used to believe in words like light-clad knight, handsome boy, hermit in the forest, until he found that life was not something that could be lived by fantasy. His clothes were torn and there were no seams. His trouser legs were stained with mud and had been washed for several years and had long been washed white. 3 years later, his youthful fantasies had long been wiped out. Alice, now I can only think about improving my soul power and adding soul rings. I really don't know when I can really control this passive nuclear radiation. I can't control my own abilities. What's the point of this? After a moment, Uchiha Uranium sighed. Then, there was no sound. He wiped the Minghong sword in silence, watered the spiritual grass before going to bed, and then lay down on the blanket and fell asleep. I hope tomorrow will be better. Before going to bed, this thought flashed through Uchiha Uranium's mind. The next moment, he sneered and closed his eyes. I don't know if he was sneering at his own idea, or laughing at himself for being a waste who couldn't even control his abilities. Late at night, there were slight noises around. The blood-red flower placed aside had left the bud state at some point. The petals were spread wide, the stamens exuded a faint fragrance, and the roots were rooted in the soil, quietly blooming their beauty. Not long after, a skinny and dry soul beast corpse fell in the grass. The 4th update is finished, and there will be 4 more tomorrow. Please vote for me. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42 Attack. On the 2nd day, he got up very early. There was a sharp banging sound coming from the edge of the rock. It was him perfecting the belt he had made yesterday. In his mind, the belt should be a belt wrapped around his waist, with a sheath inside, which contained daggers. No matter how he moved around, the daggers would not fall off at will, and could only be taken off by pulling them out when they were needed. The idea was naturally good, but he did not have the ability to transform the idea into reality. This was also a common problem for most ordinary people. There were too many things restricting themselves, such as materials, tools, techniques, environment, etc., none of which could be missing. And Uchiha Uranium was very lucky. He had none of them. He lacked everything. But this did not bother him. After all, He had nothing but time. He had plenty of time to spend on this. Although it was very energy-consuming, it was also a great honor to watch the equipment take shape bit by bit. This meant that he was not a waste of handwork. Come on, young man, you can do it. After encouraging himself, Uchiha Uranium took a deep breath, mustered up his strength again, and hammered the rock in his hand down heavily, hitting the hollow limb, intending to flatten it a little more. The depth of the hollow was too large, and the flying dagger would fall off with a casual shake. 3 months later. In the early morning of the Xingdao Great Forest, the sunlight shone through the tall fir leaves and fell on the ground full of dead branches and fallen leaves. The forest was filled with moisture and mist. Although there were no birds or animals singing around, it seemed even more quiet. The ground full of dead leaves was suddenly stepped heavily by a figure, and then jumped up again. The dead leaves flew all over the sky, swaying with the breeze, and slowly fell down. Whoosh! Accompanied by a slight sound of breaking through the air, suddenly, the small wooden stake in the air seemed to be hit hard, shaking heavily and swinging continuously. Then 3 or 4 shadows flashed by, hitting the small wooden stake that was swinging irregularly in the air. Then, a cold light flashed, and the wooden stake tied to a height of more than 10 meters broke in midair. The smooth cut had no sharp stubble, as if the knife that cut through it did not encounter any resistance. Ta-ta! A boy about 1.5 meters tall landed gracefully, stepped on the dead branches, slowly put away his knife, and stopped in the forest. A flying dagger and a knife slash were as smooth as flowing water. Although Uchiha Uranium had not learned swordsmanship or practiced the corresponding skills, the high-speed dynamic vision and physical fitness of the radiation eye made it not difficult for him to use weapons at high speed. Even as his proficiency continued to improve, he became more and more relaxed in using the Minghong sword, as if he was using his arm with his fingers. Perhaps Uchiha was born to be good at using long-range throwing objects such as kunai and shuriken, and his proficiency in flying daggers improved even faster than swordsmanship. In 3 days, he could shoot the trunk of a tree from 50 meters away. He even felt that no matter how far the distance was, the guidance from the unknown would still allow him to hit the target. After getting familiar with the speed, throwing power and angle of the flying dagger, he can even try to intercept the flying dagger with a flying dagger. The visual accuracy brought by the radiation eye allows him to have perfect control over this moving object. After 3 months of training, although he is not as good as Uchiha Itachi who closes his eyes and hits the bullseye behind the stone with a kunai, he has learned most of the other operations except this difficult one, and only needs to practice it in depth. It must be said that learning new skills and being able to see the progress of growth can bring great satisfaction in itself, not to mention that as he masters more and more, his understanding of these two things will become deeper. Just now, he hit the bullseye on the small wooden stake directly with 5 flying daggers. He didn't even need to look to know that he had hit them all. Huh? With a light cry, Uchiha Uranium took a deep breath. The next moment, his figure suddenly blurred. With a light sound, his legs and feet exerted force and stepped on the tree trunk. Then he jumped high, and the knife in his hand flashed, cutting the rope tied to the wooden stake neatly and falling to the ground. As expected, 5 daggers were inserted into a twisted circle in the wooden stake, and none of them fell outside. Throwing was already a very proficient skill for him, even better than swordsmanship and physical skills. But for him, the imbalance of the 3 was not critical. With a flying dagger, he had the initiative to attack from a distance, instead of just close combat. Soon, while thinking, Uchiha Uranium took back all the daggers stuck in the wooden stakes and inserted them into his waist with some care. When he began to look around, looking for the next place to practice, Uchiha Uranium suddenly changed his expression and made a gesture of listening attentively. There is movement. Uchiha Uranium's face sank slightly. A slight shock came from nowhere, a little like an earthquake, and also like the footsteps of a large soul beast. Although it didn't seem to be very far away from him, he always had a strong defensive mentality towards this kind of soul beast that appeared in the radiation perception. Go ahead, it's still a little far from me. I hope it's not targeting me. Realizing this, Uchiha Uranium took decisive steps, felt a movement, and ran in the opposite direction. The next moment, his face changed drastically. Boom. Boom. The latest novel is published on 69 Shuba. The originally quiet forest suddenly became agitated, and countless startled birds flew up in the distance, accompanied by the harsh and unpleasant bird calls. Gradually, the trees collapsed, and the sound of heavy objects walking became clearer and clearer. It was precisely because of this that his face changed drastically. In his radiation perception, he could feel that a large thing was rushing towards him rapidly, and any large trees and rocks blocking the way were overturned and kicked away. This amazing destructive power must be accompanied by a huge body. And a large soul beast must have at least thousands of years of cultivation. He doesn't have this ability. You know, several thousand-year soul beasts he encountered almost killed him. Run. Instantly, Uchiha Uranium mobilized all his strength, and soul rings appeared all over his body, one yellow and one purple emitting a soft halo, with an inexplicable charm, and soul power flowed from his body, and the two megatomar radiation eyes in his pupils quietly turned. Taking a deep breath, and then slowly exhaling, a ray of brilliance burst out from the boy's eyes, and then his body moved instantly, crossing many distances, and appeared 10 meters away. Second ring soul skill, extreme nuclear energy reaction was instantly activated, nuclear energy fission continued to evolve and split in his body, and radiation began to emit rapidly, lingering around him wantonly. Without stopping, he moved much faster than before with full firepower. At high speed, only a shadow could be seen in the forest. After a few jumps, he jumped onto the branches of a large tree and began to jump high in the dense forest. At this moment, it was a critical moment. Probably this week's updates are morning plus evening, 3 updates this morning, and 1 update in the evening trend. Because I am writing and saving manuscripts, I usually go to bed at 2 or 3 o'clock. Can you readers please give me some recommendation votes? The humble author is asking for votes online. Chapter 43 Fight. Soon, a giant figure stepped on the dead branches, exerted force with both feet, and rushed towards the fleeing boy in the distance at a speed that was inconsistent with its body size. From the traces behind it, it can be seen that it overturned all the way and rushed over. Whoosh! Uchiha Uranium's figure kept flashing, using kinetic energy and momentum to jump from one tree trunk to another. The soles of his feet exerted force, and his blood surged. The blood was transmitted from the heart to every corner of the body, and a long-lost passion gradually revived from the depths of his body. Yes, that's it, a stronger sense of crisis. His life was too dull except for those few battles, which made him distracted even from his daily practice. Yes, it was not enough to make him feel the feeling of life and death again. These outrageous but seemingly reasonable thoughts suddenly flashed through Uchiha Uranium's mind. His recent life was indeed too dull for him. For 3 whole months, there was nothing else except practicing swordsmanship, physical skills and throwing. Even if he practiced hard for 10 years, he would have to fight in actual combat to know what kind of situation he was in. Not to mention that there were no people here, and only soul beasts could fight. If I escape this time, when will the next battle be? He thought of this idea inadvertently. Forget it, the current sense of crisis makes me feel as if I am deadly and creepy. If I turn back and fight now, I am afraid I will die here. Although I don't know what kind of soul beast it is, it must be difficult to kill because of its large size. I will run first to see if it can catch up. If it can't catch up, I will consider fighting. If it can outrun it, then safety is guaranteed, and then there will be no problem in turning around and fighting. But if it runs faster than me, why fight? Are you looking for death? He did not stop. The rapid jumping and running made him lose his direction. He was not even sure whether he was going deeper or running to the outside world, but it didn't matter. What was important was how to deal with the soul beast behind him. Click. Uchiha Uranium fell from the forest to the ground. His speed did not slow down. He crossed a boulder, stepped on the stones, raised a large amount of dust and broken leaves, accompanied by the sound of grinding teeth, and soon, he left the stone beach and entered the woods again. After a few breaths, he disappeared. He was the spirit of the forest, like a floating ape. With his agility and high-speed dynamic vision, all obstacles in the forest were not obstacles to him, but his help. Gradually, the ground behind him shook, and the feeling of the tree falling began to weaken. Soon after, it disappeared completely, as if it realized that it could not catch up with Uchiha Uranium, even if it ran to death. The soul beast seemed to have given up the pursuit, and there was no more shaking sound of running. Should I turn back? Bang! Uchiha Uranium landed on a high branch, looking at the road he had run out of, and fell into deep thought. Without considering the consequences, a desire for excitement flashed in the boy's eyes. Although he did not say it, he had accepted the idea in his mind. Now, he was going to implement it. I still have most of my soul power, which should be enough, but I have to arrange something. A moment later, the boy rushed out of the woods, his pupils turned into two colors. The elemental pupils would help him detect attacks in advance, see through weaknesses, and the flow of soul power, which was extremely critical to him. If it weren't for it, he wouldn't even consider turning back to seek death. He hadn't lived long enough, and he wasn't a fool who would be so naive as to think that his knife could kill a large soul beast. After running for a while, Uchiha Uranium felt that a crazy breath had entered his radiation range, and Uchiha Uranium's face became solemn. He understood that fighting with a soul beast was not like inviting someone to dinner and tea. If he wasn't careful, he would die. Come on, big guy, let me see how powerful a soul beast I can deal with. I hope you can live until I kill you, but don't let the radiation wear you out. Uchiha Uranium said to himself. He believed that he felt this soul beast, and in turn, this soul beast must have sensed him. Sure enough, it moved. With an unstoppable momentum, a huge figure flattened everything around it, huge trees collapsed, dust rose high, and huge noises continued to ring. Before the fight, this soul beast was wantonly exuding an endless desire for destruction. The smoke and dust gradually dissipated, revealing a huge sharp horn, followed by blood-red eyes, with brutality and murderous intent, without a trace of rationality, and a ferocious face tangled together, as if it was in pain, and as if it was born this way. Hiss. Black rhino flame monster. How could it be this thing? And it's so big? For a moment, Uchiha Uranium was a little unbelievable. The creature in front of him, which looked like an upright rhino with red and black fur, was exactly the top melee soul beast he had seen in the Soul Beast Encyclopedia. It could even be comparable to the Soul Beast Overlord Titan Giant Ape, extremely aggressive and extremely brutal. Generally speaking, the size of a black rhino flame monster of about 1,000 years old is about 3 meters, and even if it is about 5,000 years old, it is at most 5 meters. This black rhino flame monster, which is similar to a lean and strong man, is full of muscles. Basically, increasing the height is equivalent to increasing the combat effectiveness by a cubic degree. A black rhino flame monster of about 2,000 years old can even fight against 10,000 years old without losing the upper hand. And this big guy who is over 15 meters long is undoubtedly a 50,000-year-old beast, or even stronger. Among all the 10,000-year-old soul beasts, it is also one of the best. Run. The latest novel is first published on 69 Shuba. Without hesitation, Uchiha Uranium turned and ran. The idea of fighting was fleeting. If he knew that the soul beast chasing him was this thing, he could run for 3 days and 3 nights without stopping. He thought it was a soul beast of the size of a giant elephant, a big snake, or an orangutan, but he didn't expect it to be this black rhinoceros fire beast that saw ghost. This soul beast overlord didn't go to the core area to find trouble with the titan giant ape, but actually came to him. Without the strength of a tidal Douluo, he would never have the idea of touching it. Thinking of this, he turned back to die, and it was absolutely not an exaggeration to call himself an idiot. A good advantage of escaping was wasted by himself. But the black rhino flame monster did not give him time to think and escape. After seeing Uchiha Uranium from a distance, it suddenly slapped its big palm on the ground. Although it was a little far away from Uchiha Uranium, with a bang, the sudden wind pressure and the impact of the soul force pressed on Uchiha Uranium. Just after Uchiha Uranium jumped on the stone, a shock wave came and instantly invaded his body, and his internal organs were churning, as if all his internal organs had moved. Under the heavy pressure, he almost popped his eyes out. Ugh! After being hit in the air, a stream of thick blood spurted out of his mouth and sprinkled on the cocky ground, and then fell heavily to the ground, stirring up half a person's height of dust and floating in the air. Holding back the pain and fainting, Uchiha Uranium struggled to stand up. The high-strength physique brought by the soul ring and the increase of Magatama was fully demonstrated at this moment. He did not need to drive it. The blood and ki in his body had already calmed down automatically. If it were the old him, he would probably have stopped thinking and could directly carry the coffin and play the suona. Without stopping, after struggling to get up, Uchiha Uranium fled in an instant. He could feel that this was not over yet. The next moment, the ground where he was standing collapsed, and the fiery red-hot gravel rushed up into the sky with amazing kinetic energy. If he was still standing there, he would not have to arrange his funeral and could be boxed directly. What the hell is this? The black rhinoceros fire monster that can toughen the titan giant ape, the king of the forest, comes to bully me, a level 20 war spirit master? If you don't run away, you will die. There is one more update to ask for votes. You know, if there are a lot of recommended votes, I will add more. Chapter 44. My name is Xiao Wu, the Dance of Wu. After sensing the life-threatening situation, Uchiha Uranium burst out all his potential, his soul power surged, his figure flashed, and he quickly entered the forest. The idea of fighting was instantly thrown behind his mind. Now in his mind, there was only the option of escaping. This forest is too dangerous. I'd better wait until I cultivate to the title of Douluo before going out. Inadvertently, such a nonsensical idea flashed through his rapidly turning little brain. I have to say, this does make sense. Roar. The next moment, as his figure disappeared, a shocking beast roar suddenly came from the distance behind him, and then, a tide of pressure came over him. Run quickly. Uchiha Uranium felt like he had stabbed a big trouble. If this stubborn guy stared at him because he didn't kill him, then he would be in big trouble. In terms of physical strength, he was definitely not good enough, and the black rhino flame beast could easily perform long-range flame explosions and rock collapses. How could he fight it? Thinking that he would be hunted by the soul beast in the future, with no time for training, no time for eating and resting, and he had to be on guard against the ground collapsing under his feet at any time, Uchiha Uranium was so scared that his face turned green. If this were true, it would be worse than death. He could only hope that he could run fast and get rid of it. Even if he was not a professional at escaping, he would be almost the same. Whoosh! In mid-air, Uchiha Uranium wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and quickly shuttled through the forest. In his mind, he quickly thought about how to escape the pursuit of the soul beast. Behind him, the sound of trees falling and plants collapsing was endless, and even huge roars came from time to time. Although there are many soul beasts in the Xingdao Great Forest, all those who feel its breath will retreat. Who dares to block the way of this top soul beast that is always in a rage? Similarly, Uchiha Uranium's breath can also disperse other soul beasts, and its deterrent power is even higher than that of the black rhino flame monster. The dead silence brought by this radiation, which is like the extinction of all life, can make any soul beast tremble. This just fits the appetite of the extremely aggressive black rhino flame monster. It is not afraid of death, nor is it afraid of being killed. It is only afraid of not fighting. If the black rhino flame monster had not just passed by and sensed the existence of Uchiha Uranium, perhaps the two would never meet in their lives. After all, it is either fighting or on the way to fight. The run continued. Uchiha Uranium knew very well that unless he completely got rid of it, once he was caught up, he would probably have no chance to run next time. He was just a weak battle soul master and was not qualified to fight with such a top-level big guy, not to mention that he still needed to develop. This world was too dangerous. If you wander around for a while, you can even encounter such a top soul beast. An hour later, Uchiha Uranium stood pale by a river. For more than an hour, running wildly without paying attention to the cost of soul power made him like a taut string at this moment, and there was a risk of collapse and falling at any time. But he felt as if he had completely gotten rid of it. This hour of running was too much for him. His soul power was constantly depleted and his mind was tense. He was afraid of being attacked suddenly. Under heavy pressure, he was now safe and almost collapsed on the ground. But he still felt unsafe. There was a river right next to him. He quickly washed his smell to prevent a black rhino monster from following the smell. As for radiation, which was a high threat, it was not within his consideration. After all, he couldn't even shut down the nuclear radiation that was constantly emitting. He felt like a reactor that was constantly fissioning and fissioning. As long as he was alive, he would not stop these most basic particle movements. Unless he died. The cool river water kept washing over his body, sweeping away the strong smell of sweat. After he stood up, the refreshing feeling of water flowing through his skin made him a little addicted and wanted to stop and enjoy it. But he couldn't do it. Slip away, run quickly. Without stopping for too long, Uchiha Uranium set off again, randomly found a direction, and his figure blurred in an instant, disappearing around the river, without any trace. Half an hour later, the giant tree collapsed with a bang, and the sturdy black rhino flame monster pushed away the trees that were in the way and appeared by the river. It sniffed the smell that disappeared in the air, and after the extremely dangerous trembling feeling was no longer in its perception, the sudden disappearance of the opponent made it furious. Roar. Accompanied by an extremely angry roar, the clear river suddenly bubbled up, as if it was steaming at high temperature. The river began to emit pale white high-temperature heat visible to the naked eye, and the surrounding ground kept rising and falling, collapsing, like plasticine being ravaged by anyone. After a while, the black rhino flame monster disappeared in this area, leaving only the terrain like after an earthquake. The river dried up, and gullies were everywhere, no longer the appearance that Uchiha Uranium had just passed by. The top soul beast was furious, and the sky and the earth changed color. Nodding City Junior Spirit Master Academy. Xiao Wu, tomorrow is the holiday, are you going home? Tang San said to Xiao Wu while packing his luggage. He has been studying in the Junior Spirit Master Academy for a school year. Now that it is a holiday, he can finally go home to see his father. Today he also asked for leave from the blacksmith shop and bought a brand new forging hammer, ready to take it home and give it to his father. A school year has passed. During the whole process, students are not allowed to go home, but relatives can come to visit. Tang San hoped that his father would come to see him more than once, but he never got his wish. But now that it is a holiday, he should go back to see his father. A year has passed, and he doesn't know if his father is still the same as before. Xiao Wu was a little uneasy, with a bit of uneasiness in her eyes, which was very different from her usual lively and cheerful personality. I need to go back. Something may have happened there. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Tang San was stunned for a moment. Something happened? What can I do to help? Xiao Wu shook her head and said, Xiao San, this is not something you can help with. This matter is very troublesome. I have to go and see it myself. If it weren't for this, I would have wanted to go back and play with you, but Tang San pondered for a moment. After a year of getting along, he had a better understanding of Xiao Wu. From his understanding of Xiao Wu rarely worried about such troublesome things, and would mostly throw them to him and let him find a way to solve them. But now she said that she couldn't help much, which meant that the matter was not that simple, and even she didn't think she could help much. Are you in a hurry? If not, how about I go home first and then go home with you? With me here, no one can bully you. Tang San thought of a compromise and said. Seeing Tang San's look, Xiao Wu smiled, and the frown just now disappeared without a trace, making people wonder whether this girl is straightforward or has no worries at all. She put her hands on her hips, stared at Tang San with big eyes and said, Do you still want to go home with me? This is not possible. Suddenly she felt that what she said was not right, and hurriedly continued, Ahem, I'm not saying no, I'm saying it's not possible this time. Xiao San, at least I have to go to your house first. Next time I will take you to my house, how about it? Some things are really troublesome this time, I'm afraid you will also. Xiao Wu didn't continue to speak, her pink face showed some hesitation, but in the end she decided not to let Xiao San provoke her, otherwise people would die. She felt the uneasiness in the dark. She and Ming and Erming had been together for 10,000 years. They had a tacit understanding. This uneasiness might be a warning from them to her. She had to go back to the Xingdao Great Forest. Today, 3 updates in the daytime were finished, and there would be one more update in the evening. It was almost time to enter the main storyline. The opportunity to leave the forest was coming soon. Why was no one talking? Good or bad comments were welcome. Long comments were welcome in the comment area. Chapter 45, You dare to drink my blood? Huh? Should we get rid of it? In the dark woods, a figure whose face could not be seen clearly stood on the highest branch, observing all the changes around him through his long-distance vision. He didn't know how long he had been running. It was already night. Although the sun had disappeared and the vision was dark, it was not too dark for Uchiha Uranium, who had radiation eyes. At least everything around him was under his control. Today's encounter almost scared him to death. He was still thinking about fighting soul beasts to test his 3 months of training. Unexpectedly, he caught a megalodon while fishing. He was only 1 second away from the urn. But it must be said that he was worthy of his regular training in the forest. The advantage of fast movement brought him a very difficult survival skill. He simply loved himself who had worked hard to train before. If he could go back to the past, he would definitely kiss himself a few times. Great brother, you succeeded in keeping yourself alive. Young man, although you look very embarrassed when you run away, you are really handsome when you practice. Holding the tree trunk, Uchiha Uranium suddenly boasted to himself. His pretended deep voice did not bring anything, but the joy of surviving a disaster gave him a feeling of being awesome, and powerful. After a while, the boy randomly found a direction, went in, and disappeared in the forest, completely disappearing. This place was not safe, and he needed a temporary base. Not long after, the boy suddenly rushed out of the forest at a very fast speed. With just a few taps, he jumped quickly between the trees. I don't know when, after learning this way of walking, he no longer wanted to walk slowly on the ground. Unlucky, unlucky, unlucky. What kind of place is this? How can there be a 10,000-year soul beast here? Whoosh! After Uchiha Uranium took off and landed several times, a huge black shadow followed in the air. It was unclear what kind of soul beast it was, but it was obvious that the one who could run could not outrun the one who could fly. From a distance, the broad black bat wings were clearly visible, emitting a faint white dust under the bright moonlight, as if it was spreading intentionally, or as if it was accidentally shaken off. I'm so unlucky today. In his mind, Uchiha Uranium thought of this word, and then shifted his attention to the front of him. The dark forest was very dangerous, and at this moment, there were two more dangerous killers chasing each other, one escaping and the other chasing. Squeak! The shrill screams kept echoing around, and there was an inexplicable power in it. The special sound waves were interfering with Uchiha Uranium's actions. The sound waves, like invisible substances, kept knocking on the boy's heart, causing him to twitch, but he didn't dare to lose his temper, for fear that if he relaxed his temper, he would no longer have the strength to continue running at this speed. I don't know if I didn't check the almanac before going out today. Today, I encountered two soul beasts that were not afraid of his radiation deterrence. It's easy to understand that a black rhino flame monster beast is very powerful. After all, it is already a mess. If it weren't for the fighting side by side between Daming and Erming in the core of the forest, he couldn't beat it, otherwise it would have gone to find trouble with the titan giant ape. Although it had fought before, it just didn't fight. And the bat whose face it couldn't see clearly was even stranger. It actually caught and chased him. For a moment, Uchiha Uranium was a little angry. I give you my blood, do you dare to suck it? But the situation is very clear now. Not only does it dare to suck it, it even wants to suck a few mouthfuls of Uchiha Uranium's brain to whet its appetite. Damn it, everything is really bad today. Haha, let some blood kill you. Gradually, Uchiha Uranium was able to slow down his pace, pulled out a dagger from his waist, gently cut his arm, let his hand drop, and let the blood soak his palm. He decided to fight back. He had been chased for almost half an hour. At this time, he didn't dare to stop for a second, for fear that he would be caught and killed on the spot. You know, he can only bully a 1,000-year-old soul beast at most. If he doesn't run away when he encounters a 10,000-year-old soul beast, then he can wait to become a midnight snack. After all, radiation takes time. It is not that after sucking Uchiha Uranium's blood, the soul beast will die on the spot. But he does not have time. Once the encounter begins, it will not exceed 1 minute at most. With his 9-year-old physique and 23-level soul power, he has no ability to resist the 10,000-year soul beast. Even if Tang-san comes, it will not work. That's why he is so angry. Uchiha Uranium can even say that as long as he is given time, he can kill even the titan giant ape with radiation, not to mention this 10,000-year soul beast. Now, this endless pursuit must be stopped. He can't outrun the soul beast. Unless he kills it, he will be killed by it. He didn't wait long. After smelling the blood, the bat-like soul beast suddenly seemed to be injected with chicken blood. The speed increased sharply, carrying a disgusting fishy wind, and suddenly pounced on Uchiha Uranium, with a terrifying mouth open very wide, revealing sharp and slender fangs. Now, eat my blood and blind my eyes. Sensing the sudden attack, Uchiha Uranium jumped into the air in one breath, and his right hand, which was holding the blood, opened wide instantly, and sprinkled all of it on the bat soul beast. Then, he quickly landed and rolled to avoid the attack. His petite body burst out with extremely fast reaction speed, flashed over the boulder, bypassed a big tree, and disappeared without a trace in an instant. This is his special way of escape. Squeak. Blood was also sprinkled into the giant mouth of the bat soul beast, and the scarlet liquid was all left on its face and body. As the blood was gradually absorbed, it suddenly stopped, and an unpleasant sharp cry came out of its terrifying giant mouth. It landed on the tree trunk in a hurry, rubbing its body against the tree fiercely, trying to wipe off the blood on its body. But after a while, it began to tremble all over, emitting light red-hot air, and the screams became louder and louder. The bat soul beast, which absorbs life fluids and essence, seemed to have suffered a great torture at this moment. Fortunately, its body was tough enough, otherwise this degree of physical collapse would be enough to kill it. Squeak. The latest novel is first published on the 69th Book Forum. Squeak. Half an hour later, after enduring nearly half an hour of torture, it fainted and fell under the tree, completely motionless, as if dead. I was scared to death, scared to death. I thought it would be cold today. Did I run directly to the 10,000-year soul beast area? I encountered a 10,000-year soul beast not long after walking. My god, I was scared to death. Uchiha Uranium stopped running, holding his violently beating heart with his hands, his face pale, cold sweat pouring down. If he didn't rest, he would die suddenly. After realizing that the bat soul beast was no longer chasing him, he couldn't help laughing. I told you to chase me, are you stupid now? Do you think you can chase me? The boy smiled, then looked at the quiet surroundings suspiciously, fearing that another big one would run out and want to eat him as dinner. After a moment, the boy breathed a sigh of relief, then quickly set traps around, and prepared to start resting tonight. The giant bat lying under the tree suddenly shook its wings and slowly fell to the ground. After carefully looking around and seeing that there was no sign of Uchiha Uranium, it wailed in a humane way, then flapped its weak wings and slowly flew to its nest. Its own extremely strong digestive ability almost killed it, and it directly swallowed the ultra-high concentration of nuclear materials, which made the already unhealthy giant bat even worse. Even now, it barely survived, but the harm of this physical collapse will accompany it throughout its life. It can even be said that it is very likely that it, which has lived for 10,000 years, cannot beat its 1,000-year-old counterparts now. Radiation is not harmful in nature, it is a neutral word. In essence, it is energy in the form of electromagnetic waves and particles. If it can tame this energy in the body before its lifespan is exhausted, then not only will it not die, but it will go one step further. The next day, Xiao Wu set out on the road to the Star Dou Great Forest, while Tang San chose to go home alone. He didn't know where Xiao Wu's home was, but he knew that they would be able to meet again next time they returned to the academy. Today is over, okay. Does anyone have any votes? Please cast your extra votes quickly. Is anyone collecting my book? The humble new author is online asking for collections. Chapter 46 Uranium and Xiao Wu. After entering the Xingdao Great Forest, Xiao Wu saw that there was no one around, as if she had broken free from her restraints. She opened her arms and spun while closing her eyes to carefully feel the gentle breeze from nature. Her pink face was covered with a peaceful smile, which made people obsessed. Wow, I'm finally back. I've been studying all day in the academy. It's boring. As she thought, Xiao Wu stopped spinning. Somehow, Tang San's gentle smile suddenly flashed in her mind. Although she didn't know it yet, at this moment, after leaving the academy, she did miss Tang San a little. But Tang San couldn't come here, and he couldn't let him know. Alice, I wanted to go to Xiao San's house to take a look. I don't know what happened in the forest. How about taking a turn first and then asking Erming to come? Anyway, there's still time. Thinking of this, Xiao Wu's expression, which was a little solemn after arriving in the forest, gradually became relaxed. Although she had to get to the core as soon as possible to find out what happened, she was not in a hurry. Since there is no hurry, then walk around in the forest to see if there are any changes. Besides, I have been looking at the core lake for so many years and I am tired of it. Xiao Wu immediately set off, found a direction, bent her legs and stood up. Her toes popped out instantly, and her delicate body moved instantly, and she appeared 10 meters away. It's still interesting outside, there are comfortable quilts, and I can be a big sister. It's so fun. Wandering along the way, Xiao Wu looked around. Because there is no human disturbance, these vegetation grows as lush as before. As they go deeper, small soul beasts of various sizes gradually increase. Some of them are in groups, eating berries in the bushes, and some of them run into the jungle and disappear. It is difficult to see such a harmonious scene in a normal forest. The Xingdao Great Forest is worthy of the reputation of soul beast paradise. After sensing Xiao Wu's breath, these soul beasts all got a little agitated, but soon calmed down again. They stopped their movements and stopped to look at the cute little Wu. The eyes of these petite soul beasts were full of strange colors, as if she was a goddess that everyone was paying attention to. Soon, Xiao Wu walked over here with a smile, touching the head of the soft bone rabbit from time to time, and the next moment she picked up the cute light spirit mouse, turned it a few times in the air and put it down. At this time, when she came to the territory that really belonged to her, Xiao Wu relaxed. She liked these furry and cute guys the most. She was also the cutest. Here half an hour later. Crossing the stream, the sun gradually approached noon. Xiao Wu wiped the sweat from her forehead and couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. Why could the sun be so scorching? She was a little uncomfortable. Fortunately, after feeling that it was a bit troublesome to wander around the forest alone, Xiao Wu released her breath. I guess at this moment, Erming was on his way. This forest is too big. If I really want to see it, I'm afraid I won't be able to see all these views in my lifetime. After thinking about it, it's better not to. Suddenly, Xiao Wu stopped. She looked at the dead and deserted surroundings in front of her. At some point, all the soul beasts disappeared unconsciously. In an instant, her face turned pale. She didn't feel it just now, but now she felt it. An extremely cold breath full of death kept lingering here. The desire for life in her blood warned Xiao Wu that there was danger ahead. Be careful. Where am I? Xiao Wu suddenly remembered the dark demon evil god tiger that was once driven away by Daming and Erming. It was cruel, murderous, and loved to devour soul beasts. Thinking of where she was now, her pink face was pale and her body stood stiffly in place, at a loss. Well, Erming, where are you? With a light click, Xiao Wu jumped up in fear, activated her soul power, and quickly left the place dozens of meters away. But there was no lower roar of the beast, no heavy footsteps, and no cruel breath. Only a young boy of moderate build and young appearance came out of the forest. The sound just now was the sound of stepping on broken leaves. You, who are you? A human. Uchiha Uranium also saw the figure hiding behind the stone not far away, revealing half of his body and small head. He suddenly opened his eyes wide. After so many years, he actually saw a person again. Without hesitation, even though he was happy to see a person, even though he was eager to talk to him, he still retreated quickly. After a few ups and downs, he completely disappeared from Xiao Wu's sight. He did not forget that the reason he came to the forest was to prevent his radiation from killing more people. At present, the distance between this little girl and him was a little close. Huh? Is it a human? Xiao Wu was full of question marks. The sudden sound just now scared her. She thought she had walked to the dark demon evil god tiger that was expelled from the Xingdao Great Forest and was almost eaten as a snack. Unexpectedly, it was a boy here. She stood out from behind the stone and looked in the direction of the boy with some doubts. She didn't understand why the boy ran away when he saw her. Was she so scary? Was she not cute and scared others? Just when Xiao Wu was wondering about her appearance, two tall trees suddenly slowly parted to the sides, and a huge figure walked out silently. It was like a mountain, with dark hair all over its body shining with a faint luster under the strong sunlight. Although it was on all fours, its shoulder height was more than 7 or 8 meters. A huge monster. From the outside, it looked like a monkey with a torso, but its limbs and hands were no different from those of a chimpanzee. Its lantern-sized eyes flashed with a yellow crystal-like luster. Except for its eyes, its whole body was pitch black. If it was at night, it might not be able to see its figure clearly. But under the sunlight, the black giant creature was particularly conspicuous. The latest novel is published on 69shu.com. Looking from the top down, this big guy is incredibly majestic, with strong muscles like granite covering every part of his body. It is hard to imagine that a soul beast can have such a body shape that can only be achieved through human training. It does not look like it grows naturally at all. It is the king of the forest, the Titan ape. Huh? Erming, you are here, just in time. Hurry up. There was a human over there just now. He ran into the forest. If he is not driven out of the forest, he will be killed by the soul beast. Xiao Wu suddenly felt something, turned around abruptly, and pointed in a direction anxiously. She felt that Erming was behind her, and the sudden sense of security that filled her whole body was something that only Daming could give her, except for Erming. After hearing what Xiao Wu said, Erming actually shook his head miraculously, pointed in that direction, and waved his thick fingers, as if he was not willing to go over at all. Then Erming let out a dull roar. Although it didn't sound loud, it could be heard over 1,000 meters. Finally, Erming patted his broad shoulders. That's the only way. Xiao looked hesitant. She was still a little worried about the boy who suddenly appeared and then disappeared. But Erming did it because he must rush to where Daming was to find out the specific situation. Let's go. Xiao quickly sat on the Titan ape, and then Erming gradually disappeared into the forest. However, around Uchiha Uranium, all the soul beasts within a radius of 3 kilometers had already fled. Erming's roar could only be heard by all the plants. I changed something in the last chapter. If you are interested, you can go and review it. 3 chapters in the evening, this chapter for the time being in the morning. Collect and vote. Chapter 47, Risk of Forest Destruction, please collect and recommend. Whoosh! Uchiha Uranium moved quickly through the forest, jumping and tumbling, without paying any attention to the surrounding environment, no matter how loud the noise was. He never thought that he would meet someone in this zinged out great forest, and it was a weak and tender little girl. Although he could not see anyone protecting her, she had unknowingly walked to his side, and the radiation perception had not detected it. This was really shocking. Logically speaking, any living being should have a reaction, but now, the girl approached quietly as if she had merged with the forest, and the radiation perception had no reaction, as if it had failed. But at this moment, thinking back, Uchiha Uranium's mind flashed the face of the girl he had just seen, with a tender face and long scorpion hair. Although he did not know who the girl was, he always felt that her temperament gave him a strange familiarity. In a trance, he suddenly caught a glimpse of inspiration, but soon, he gave up. He knew exactly what he was like at that moment. Just like solving a math problem, a flash of inspiration came to his mind, and he thought of an idea, as if he could solve the problem as long as he continued to delve deeper. However, the cruel reality cruelly whipped the former boy, and his idea was completely wrong. And just like now, how similar are the two? The only difference is that the figure in his mind has quietly overlapped with a shadow he had seen in his previous life. Passing through a dense forest, the Titan giant ape slowly walked into it with a gentleness that did not match his body size. The clear lake was crystal clear and sparkling under the sunshine. There were towering trees planted by the lake. The warm moisture and the bright and soft light intertwined into a dream-like heaven. What appeared in front of Erming was a beautiful world that could not be described in words. It was very familiar with this place, and did not cause any damage because of its body size. The reason why there were no other soul beasts around this dream-like forest lake was because the owner here was the true emperor of the Zingdao Great Forest, 100,000-year soul beast, the Azure Bull Python. And this is also Xiao Wu's home. Puff! Countless water splashes turned into gorgeous lights, and in an instant they gushed out like a fountain. The air suddenly became humid, and a huge bull head with a diameter of more than 4 meters suddenly emerged from the water. Its green scales and huge body soared into the sky, then slowly sank, and floated into the water again, exposing its huge head. Daming. Before the soul beast with a bull's head and a snake's body could stand firm, Xiao Wu sat on Erming's shoulder and waved to it quickly. The joy of reuniting with her family made her unable to control herself for a while. Erming had just bent down, and Xiao Wu couldn't wait to jump down and ran towards the Qingshan bull python. I miss you guys so much. You know, the human world outside is very interesting. There are delicious food, fun things, and I have a friend named Tang-san. It's very interesting. The Azure Bull Python just lowered its head, and Xiao Wu came to the Azure Bull Python with a bull's head and a snake's body. Her tender little hands stroked its gleaming scales, and she laughed happily while telling interesting stories about the outside world. Erming sat down not far from Xiao Wu without knowing when. His honest face didn't show anything, but his serious expression could be felt. He was listening quietly, and from time to time he made a low roar, as if he was agreeing, or as if he was saying something. Xiao Wu sat cross-legged on the grass by the lake. There was no mud on the warm grass that stained her body, but instead exuded a faint fragrance, which made people feel refreshed just by smelling it. The Azure Bull Python half exposed its body above the lake, its huge head lying on the shore, its bright eyes gently looking at Xiao Wu who was talking endlessly in front of it. For a moment, this lake in the forest was like a beautiful painting, intoxicating. So, that's it, there are so many beautiful things outside. I can get gold soul coins every month, but it's still not enough to spend. I want to buy everything, but when I don't have enough money, I go to Xiao-san to borrow. Oh, by the way, speaking of Xiao-san, I actually want to go to his house with Xiao-san today. I heard it's very close. Xiao Wu gradually began to talk about her and Tang-san in the academy, but somehow, she talked a little too much. After hearing the word Tang-san appear more and more frequently, the azure bull python had quietly raised its head, looked at the serious Titan giant Aberming beside it, and then nodded tacitly, not knowing what he thought of, or what he had planned. Finally, Xiao Wu's mouth was a little dry from talking. She exhaled, smiled, and lay straight down, closing her eyes and feeling the sunlight on her face. Her tender body curves had not yet developed, but her slightly raised chest had already taken shape, especially her long thighs and thin waist, which fully interpreted the word petite beauty. The perfect golden ratio, the naturally curved eyebrows, a pair of watery big eyes and a slightly round pink face, were not only beautiful, but also gave people a sense of cuteness. The word cute seemed to be tailor-made for her. Xiao Wu, I'm afraid you don't know what happened when I called you back this time. The azure bull python was silent for a while. It watched Xiao Wu enjoy the sunshine after returning home comfortably, but this matter was related to the life and death of the forest. Some things it needed to say could not be delayed any longer, otherwise, when that terrifying, virus-like existence continued to grow, the Star Dou Great Forest would be destroyed. It's not that it hasn't tried to expel it, but twice it drove the soul beasts there, each time because the soul beasts took the lead because of the overlapping of its soul beast dominance aura and the terrifying aura of the human, causing its mind to collapse, and almost let the human die here. This is why the azure bull python saw that the human was getting closer and closer to the depths, and was anxious for a while, calling Xiao Wu back to discuss how to solve this matter. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that the human had a very strong corrosive ability and a very large range, it would have driven it away by itself long ago, but once this kind of thing is contaminated by even a trace, according to its guess, the corrosive ability will accompany it for hundreds of years. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. And if the human died in the forest, even on the periphery, then the uncontrollable radiation would pollute all the land in the forest at the speed of light. According to its guess, it might even endanger their home. Just the blood spraying out will cause a dead silence in the surrounding area of at least 50 square kilometers. After all, it has seen the power called radiation from the surrounding environment and the dead soul beasts, which makes it deeply afraid. In fact, the azure bull python didn't know, and was glad that it didn't do it itself. Otherwise, with a half-life of uranium being nearly 240,000 years, once it took action and killed the boy, the radiation would follow it for the rest of its life until it died. You know, the azure bull python is only a 100,000-year soul beast. I won't go to bed until I finish coding 4 chapters, but you can sleep now. You can read the chapters tomorrow morning. No need to wait, it's too late. Chapter 48 Choice. Xiao Wu listened very carefully. From the helpless look of the azure bull python, she could feel that it didn't like this uninvited guest who broke into the forest. The azure bull python also had its own helplessness. If it killed a human, it would not only be affected by the radiation power for a lifetime, but also the radiation power of death would turn all the surrounding environment into a Jedi, and even spread to the lake and the forest, destroying its home and that of Xiao Wu and Erming. And driving the soul beast out would be even worse. It had driven the soul beast away twice to attack a human, making him withdraw himself and not go deep into the forest. It was better to stay on the periphery forever and not come in. The madness of the soul beast was something it didn't expect. It was the emperor of the Dou Great Forest. The natural king's aura would make the soul beast flee madly, but when the driven soul beast walked into the territory of the human, from the radiation, from the instinctive awe of life, from the fear of death, the soul beast felt that there was the azure bull python on one side and the breath of death on the other side, and it collapsed instantly. There is no place to escape, only death. It was precisely because of the soul beast's crazy attack on the human that almost caused the human's death. After trying twice without success, the azure bull python gave up the method of using soul beasts to drive him away. If the human really died, at least 1/5 of the Star Dou Great Forest would be extinct with all the soul beasts. This is the forest where it grew up since childhood. No soul beast has a deeper love for its homeland than it. No matter what, it will not let the human die here. So what should it do if it doesn't kill? The result is obvious. After the human was no longer threatened by soul beasts, he chose to go deeper and was almost at the 10,000-year soul beast area. It was not far from the center of this place. At this time, the azure bull python became anxious. You know, there are many 10,000-year soul beasts who are not afraid of death. What if they don't care and kill the human under the threat of radiation? With the speed of radiation spreading, it and Erming may even be in danger. As for escorting, it was even more impossible. Not to mention that staying in the radiation range would be life-threatening. The radiation killed soul beasts regardless of whether they were enemies or friends, not to mention long-distance protection. I was afraid that by the time the 10,000-year soul beast was killed directly, the corpse would be cold by the time I rushed over. So in a hurry, they could only ask Xiao Wu to come back as soon as possible to see if she could do anything. In the past, Xiao Wu had always been like a sister to them, and it was the same for finding a solution. It had been like this since childhood. Xiao Wu, what should we do? Finally, the sky blue bull python lowered its head and looked at the thoughtful girl with hope. In terms of strength, it was the overlord of the Star Dou Forest. In terms of ability, it even had domain skills. In the entire Douluo Continent, there were no more than 5 people who could defeat it at this time, but now, it had no way to deal with a small second-ring soul master. That human was like an extremely dangerous time bomb. No, it was more terrifying than a bomb. Once he died, the extinction he brought would be permanent. But seriously speaking, it was not permanent. It was just that no soul beast could survive here for more than 200,000 years. Once living in the radiation area, all soul beasts will be like the one it had seen that was mutated by Erming's same race, with their bodies collapsed and their consciousness completely gone, leaving only the desire for killing in flesh and blood. Although they are powerful, they are completely inseparable from the radiation range. Although it can kill the monster with a flip of its hand, the azure bull python disdains to do it. It knows that such a monster will collapse in its body as time goes by, and it will die without a burial place. The most important thing is that killing the radiation monster will also dirty its hands. Oh yes, the azure bull python suddenly remembered that it seemed to have no hands. Wait, Daming, is the human you are talking about a person with silver white hair, not tall, and who looks only 2 or 3 years older than me? Suddenly, Xiao Wu recalled the boy she had just met and the terrifying trembling on his body, and asked speculatively. Yes, he is a human child. Daming nodded, then turned his eyes to Erming, with a questioning look in his expression. Erming nodded his big, honest head. For some reason, he seemed unwilling to speak, but Daming had gotten used to it. They also had a special way of communicating, which would not be affected by this reason at all. Older, you. How could you let Xiao get close to him? Even I dare not get close to him. I am so angry. Xiao, do you feel something wrong with your body? Daming was furious when he saw Erming nodded. He knew the danger, but Erming actually let Xiao get close to the source of terror. He was so angry. The gentle light sprinkled on Xiao's pink face. Her pretty face was white and rosy, and she looked like a ripe peach. She shook her head slightly, her eyes were scattered, and her mind appeared the boy who turned around and left quickly without hesitation after seeing him. If she guessed correctly, the boy was probably aware of the destruction he had brought, and the people around him must have suffered. So now, according to Daming's words, he came to the soul beast forest full of death at the age of 6. This determination shocked Xiao Wu a little. You know, leaving home at the age of 6, leaving everything familiar, stepping into the forest where life and death are unknown, and living a life like a savage, this determination, this perseverance, is really hard to describe. If it were her, she might not be able to do this. After all, she didn't really live only 6 years old, and she couldn't abandon Daming and Erming, these partners who grew up together, or relatives. The latest novels are published on the 6th-9th book bar. Erming scratched his head guiltily. He knew that the boss was blaming him for not rushing over earlier and letting Xiao Wu face the human, but he ran all the way out from the core, and he had tried his best. Now he could only hope that Xiao Wu was okay. Otherwise, even if he had to endure the so-called radiation poison, he would crush that human to death and avenge Xiao Wu. Well, I'm okay now, Daming. Do you think that human came here because he was driven out? If we drive him out of the forest, doesn't that mean that the human side is very dangerous? After all, they don't have such a strong physique as us, and I'm afraid that there will be a lot of suffering. Xiao Wu had spent a year in human society after all. As far as she was concerned, the people around her were very good, whether it was Xiao-san, the master, or Wang Xing, the teacher who taught her. It was difficult for everyone to be good. If the boy was driven out, it would be very dangerous. But she had lived in the Xingdao Great Forest for 10,000 years. She was so familiar with every plant and tree here that she could tell what it was with her eyes closed. If the forest was destroyed and the soul beasts fled for it, she would not accept it. Therefore, her position and her words were also centered on the consequences of the drive, not whether it was necessary to drive it out. Xiao Wu was a child of the forest, so she naturally had to think about the forest. Suddenly, a picture flashed through Xiao Wu's mind, a young man carrying pain that no one understands, going deep into an unfamiliar forest alone, staying with boring surroundings all day, with no one talking to him, and no one accompanying him. The young man looked at everything in despair, but still lived tenaciously, but would cry humbly in the middle of the night. This ability was not what he wanted, but he was forced to endure it all. He was so pitiful. Thinking of this, Xiao Wu continued, "How about I go and talk to him? Tell him not to go deeper. How about living on the periphery?" If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Leaving. Without a doubt, Xiao Wu's words were rejected by Daming and Erming. The reason was simple. They couldn't let Xiao Wu take risks, even if there was no danger. Not to mention that the radiation level displayed by Uchiha Uranium alone was far beyond the normal range. Even the Azure Bull Python was unwilling to stay by his side, which was enough to show that radiation could pose a threat to 100,000-year soul beast. More precisely, under the radiation, any living creature, no matter how old or powerful it is, whether it is water or plants, whether it is stone or earth, the radiation will kill them all without any survivors. This is its horror. At this moment, while Xiao Wu, Daming and Erming were discussing, Uchiha Uranium also woke up suddenly from his sleep. Scorpion braids, little girl, alone in the Star Dou Great Forest, these factors come together. Damn, how could I forget? Xiao Wu, it must be Xiao Wu. For a moment, Uchiha Uranium's face turned pale. It's over. I remember the book said that Xiao Wu likes soul beasts the most. She must not like me, a biological exterminator, being here, but she didn't do anything. Why? It's bad. She went to get help. Damn it, run. The next moment, Uchiha Uranium suddenly jumped up from the boulder, and his soul power was no longer conserved. He thought about where Xiao Wu came from, and then fled quickly in a certain direction. Fortunately, he remembered that Xiao Wu's body was a soul beast, and it was a soul beast that grew up in the Dou Great Forest. If she saw the destroyed forest environment, she might be so angry that she would let the Titan giant ape crush her to death over and over again. Although this was not his original intention, because of him, soul beasts died in piles. You know, when Tang San went to get the soul ring, Xiao Wu would say that he must get the soul ring. It can be seen that she would feel distressed when killing a soul beast, so what about him who indirectly killed a lot of soul beasts because of radiation? While running, Uchiha Uranium recalled this plot in his mind and suddenly increased his speed. If he didn't run it this time, when Xiao Wu drove the Titan giant ape to come, he would have nowhere to run. Uchiha Uranium, with full firepower, was very fast. At this time, he couldn't help but start to sense the surrounding environment. If something went wrong and he ran in the wrong direction and ran to the core lake, he would be really dumbfounded. Even door-to-door delivery was not so fast. But fortunately, the Dou Great Forest is very large, unexpectedly large. If compared with the actual landform, it is probably enough to cover a large province, or even more. After all, it is the largest forest in Douluo Continent, and it is also the oldest, with the largest number of soul beasts. It is precisely because of this large area that Uchiha Uranium feels a little relieved. After all, in this way, it is not easy for him to run into someone's nest. As long as he finds a direction and keeps running, one day he can run to the edge of the forest and then slowly develop. From now on, wander in the Dou Great Forest. It's better not to go deep into the forest, otherwise you may bump into the Titan giant ape who is eliminating harm for the beasts at any time. Even the strength of the title Douluo is not a match for him, let alone him who is not even a soul master. Running around all day, I don't know when it will end. With a silent face, Uchiha Uranium instantly entered a dark forest, and a slight movement sound could be heard from time to time. Not long after, the surroundings became completely quiet. At night, Uchiha Uranium roasted the uneaten wolf meat. After eating, he set up some traps and then began to practice soul power to get it. He has realized that if his strength is not enough, then no matter how terrible his radiation is, he will be slaughtered. Just like the 10,000-year soul beast that doesn't know whether it is dead or not, or the irrational and crazy soul beast that he encountered a few times before. The reason why he has fallen to the point of running away when he sees a soul beast is nothing more than his own ability. However, men can't say no. After learning from his mistakes, the young man's eyes slightly condensed. Looking at the safe surroundings, he practiced all night. If there were no accidents, he would continue to practice tomorrow, and change places after a while. At least, he had to improve to the strength of Soul Master within 2 years, so that he would have spare energy to find the third soul ring. The most important thing is that he understands that the soul ring and soul skills will be obtained by killing the soul beast. At present, his biggest problem is that the radiation can be released but not collected. He is a complete destroyer of nature. As his strength increases, the degree of destruction will gradually increase. This is what he doesn't want to see, otherwise he will never return to human society. He wants to eat roast chicken and roast duck, steamed buns and tofu, but he can't take back the radiation now. Unless there is a soul beast that can absorb its own energy, whether it is the ability of bat soul beasts to absorb soul beast blood, or rock soul beasts that absorb energy, slowly accumulate, and finally burst all at once. Or plant soul beasts that can absorb underground resources with their roots, no matter what they are, these are his goals. He didn't want to bear the power of radiation. This kind of thing that was out of his control had brought him too many troubles. If it hadn't been for it, he might have been able to practice leisurely in the family, slowly cultivating under the guidance of his father and elders, and slowly becoming an adult. But now, in the Xingdao Great Forest, dangers began to increase. If he was not careful, he might die. I need a soul skill that can control my power, and a soul beast that can control myself, otherwise I will never have a chance to go home in my life. The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. Uchiha Uranium paused in his practice, and the boy raised his head. The desire to go home was deeply engraved in his eyes. His serious face, tightly pursed lips, and his body was a little thin due to malnutrition, but at this moment, he burst out of his thin body with unparalleled determination. The next moment, Uchiha Uranium closed his eyes and continued to sit cross-legged, practicing the unique training method of the Uchiha family. This training method can effectively improve the body speed, soul power circulation and the increase of pupil power. He only knows these, and he doesn't know anything else. He was in a hurry to go out, and he only had this book with him. He didn't know any of the subsequent Uchiha fighting methods, the nurturing of pupil power, and the fighting methods. In other words, at present, he only has soul power and pupil power, but no corresponding fighting methods at all. If he can tame the radiation power in his body, perhaps his ability can continue to improve after returning to the family in the future. He didn't forget that in the Naruto world alone, after only 100 or 1,000 years of growth, there are already Izanami and Izanaji, which are beyond the ordinary forbidden techniques, not to mention that in places like Douluo Continent where battles are frequent, there must be more fighting skills. If he can go home, as the legitimate son and eldest son of the family, he must be qualified to learn. But all this depends on when he can tame it. Uchiha Uranium, who was in training, bit his teeth. He had been eager for strength. He had never wanted to gain power so much before. At this moment, he seemed to be able to feel what Uchiha Sasuke had been thinking. Scenes flashed through his mind, from the exploding Albert to the Wind-Scythe beast, from the black rhinoceros flame beast to the 10,000-year bat soul beast, and now the titan ape that could appear at any time and wipe him out. His strength was still too weak. Sasuke needed the power of revenge. And he needed the power to tame the radiation energy. Chapter 50, Warning from the Titan Ape, 10,000 Rewards and More. He ran away, Xiao Wu. He should be outside the forest now, at least he can't be sensed in the deep forest. The Azure Bull Python whispered to Xiao Wu. After that, Erming stood up silently and walked away, not knowing what he was going to do. It was too fast. They were still discussing how to deal with Uchiha Uranium. After all, this was related to the survival of the Star Dou Great Forest. Even Uchiha Uranium didn't know when he had become so important, but if it weren't for the radiation protecting him, he would have been crushed to death by the Titan giant ape without blinking an eyelid. So, he should be grateful that his ability was strong enough to at least make the soul beasts of 100,000 years afraid to act rashly, but this only included soul beasts that had feelings for the Star Dou Great Forest. If he encountered a soul beast of 70,000 or 80,000 years without high intelligence, Uchiha Uranium would definitely die as miserably as he wanted. After all, he is a nuclear energy source, and nuclear energy is also a kind of energy, which is probably similar to the Sharingan ice silkworm with explosive spines. However, compared with the non-toxic and pollution-free clean energy of Sharingan ice silkworm, Uchiha Uranium is more like a pufferfish. Dealing with the spines will kill people, eating them will kill people, and digesting them will also kill people. But now, Uchiha Uranium is very smart to run out by himself, which solves the biggest problem of the azure bull python, that is, if he suddenly dies in the forest, it will be difficult for it to deal with. Xiao Wu gave up the idea of looking for Uchiha Uranium. She knew that Daming and Erming would not let her find the boy, let alone talk. His thorny existence alone made Xiao Wu not know what to do for a while. She is a human who has transformed, and her physique is naturally based on human standards. Although her foundation is a soul beast, she will not show her appearance unless she is about to die. And even the azure bull python is very afraid of radiation. How long can she withstand it? She dare not think about it herself. How can there be such a terrible and pathetic person in this world? But now that I'm back, I'll have fun during the second semester. Xiao Wu thought so. She actually understood the moment she came into contact with Uchiha Uranium. Although this radiation is deadly, soul beasts are not fools. They will flee when they sense danger and will not stay where they are and wait for death. So she is concerned about how many soul beasts will die tragically at the hands of the boy. This question is actually easy to answer. That is, no soul beast will die in his hands. As for the soul beasts that were driven away by radiation and fled in panic and entered the territory of other soul beasts to fight, once there is a battle between soul beasts, it must be a life and death struggle. This is normal. Xiao Wu understood that if it weren't for Daming and Erming protecting her, she would have been killed by other soul beasts eager to devour the essence with her combat power at the level of a 10,000-year soul beast. The survival of the fittest in the evolution of all things is vividly demonstrated in the Star Dou Forest. Even she is like this, so other soul beasts must be like this. Half a month later, Xiao Wu smiled and watched the Titan ape go away. The holiday time has come. Now, it's time to go back to school. Although she is reluctant to leave Daming and Erming, she has not seen Xiao Sam for a long time and she really misses him. She wants to spar, eat candied haws, cover herself with a warm and comfortable quilt, and be a big sister. There are too many things waiting for her to complete. I don't know how Xiao-san is now. On the way, Xiao Wu hopped and walked, smiling, and slowly walked towards the direction of the academy. On the other side, Uchiha Uranium looked at the stone tablet in front of him with a serious face. In the morning, when he was practicing, a sudden loud noise broke the silence around him. Following the mentality of checking what happened, Uchiha Uranium came to this place. It was a stone tablet that fell from the sky, or a boulder. But these are not important. What is important is that there are several crooked continental characters engraved on it. Humans leave here. In just 5 words, the pressure of a mountain came over him, pressing directly on Uchiha Uranium's heart. He could even feel the Titan ape state of mind from these fonts. This does not mean that its handwriting is good. On the contrary, it is written very badly, but it is completely infused with emotion. It is from the heart, wanting Uchiha Uranium to leave. The words on the stone tablet are very large, and the strokes feel as thick as his thighs. It doesn't look like it was carved at all. Instead, it looks like it was written with fingers. Sure enough, it's right. The Titan ape is paying attention to me. If I had approached Xiao Wu because I was excited to meet someone before, I'm afraid I would have been torn to pieces. And now, after running for more than a day and a night, although I don't know where I went, the Titan ape can still find him, and within the distance that can ensure that he can hear, he wrote some scribbled warnings with his fingers, and threw them out directly, smashing them here. Uchiha Uranium was silent. To be honest, this feeling of being threatened is not good, but he is not capable enough, so he can only bear it. But this also made him feel relieved. At least the Titan ape was willing to write and communicate. Although he didn't know whether it was learned from Xiao Wu, it didn't matter. What was important was that it was willing to communicate, which meant that he would not be killed by the Titan ape suddenly. Save. After reading these 5 words, Uchiha Uranium smiled. At least there was no threat from the top soul beast, so he didn't have to divide his attention while practicing and observing the surroundings. The latest novels are published on the 69th book bar. He had to improve his soul power level as soon as possible, and then find an opportunity to control the radiation energy in one breath, and finally leave here and return to his own world. Although the forest environment is beautiful, it is not where he should come. Similarly, the owner here does not welcome his arrival. At least put yourself in the position of the Titan ape and think about it. If a very troublesome person came to your territory, what would you do? Expel? I'm afraid so. If I were a Titan ape, I wouldn't do better than it, but... Uchiha Uranium looked at the stone tablet and murmured unconsciously, "It's this feeling of being powerless again. I want to get stronger as soon as possible. It's not fast enough now. Go faster." A moment later, Uchiha Uranium closed his eyes and began to practice in a temporary camp. With each breath, the light around him seemed to begin to pulsate, as if invisible energy was responding to the boy's soul power. This feeling of being in an embrace made Uchiha Uranium, who was practicing, unconsciously reveal an expression of enjoyment. As time passed, the pulsation in the air became more and more obvious. Soon, in response to the surging soul power, Uchiha Uranium opened his eyes, and a ray of brilliance burst out of his eyes. Successfully broke through. He is now at level 24 soul power and the update is finished, and it's more than 3:30. Everyone, seeing how hard I work on the update, will anyone vote for me? That's all I ask for. It'd be best if you could add more collections. It's not easy to update, and I'm currently competing with other books on the recommendation list. I need results even more. Thanks. From yesterday morning to now, there have been 5 updates, 1 in the morning and 4 in the evening. 4 of them are normal updates, and the extra one is to thank the reward. Thanks again for the reward. I'm going to sleep. Today's update will probably be in the afternoon or evening, because I was very sleepy and wrote it. If there are any mistakes, please point them out and I will make urgent changes. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.